Chapter 31-37. Countless laws were entangled, divided into two sides, and collided wildly. From afar, the pan-heavenly palace looked like a cage that wanted to break free. The world that was originally mistaken as a subsidiary space of the pan-heavenly palace turned out to be a cage that imprisoned the pan-heavenly palace. The pan-heavenly palace. No, it should be said that the pan-heavenly palace was a prisoner that was imprisoned within. Countless years ago, it had been imprisoned within. Now, however, it had been broken due to the arrival of many sovereign emperors. The originally weak Pan-Tian Tianzuan had devoured many sovereign emperors, causing his strength to soar. Now he could challenge the cage. Countless nomological divine chains emerged from the void. It turned out that there had always been countless nomological divine chains locking onto the Pan-Heaven Palace. The huge Pan-Heavenly Palace was locked in this world. This was a huge cage. Suddenly, a terrifying divine light burst out from the Pan-Heavenly Palace. It turned into a shocking divine sword and directly slashed into the sky. Boom! The entire sky was cut open in an instant, but it quickly recovered. A vague figure appeared in the sky. He stood with his hands behind his back, looking down on all living beings. It's been so many years. Do you think you can still imprison me? The Pan-Heavenly Palace roared angrily. Yishuan watched from afar. He didn't immediately leave this space. He looked from afar. The vague figure wasn't a real existence, but a thought, or rather a thought-like existence. He was slightly surprised. It was just a thought, but it could actually suppress the Pan-Heavenly Palace and the Pan-Heavenly Palace together. How strong was this person? The figure didn't respond. Countless divine law chains appeared around him. In other words, these divine law chains spread out from his body. This incarnation had been guarding the Pan-Heavenly Palace for countless years. Another shocking martial arts torrent blasted out from the Pan-Heavenly Palace and directly blasted towards the figure. A defensive divine art also appeared in front of that figure to block the attack. Every single attack was capable of destroying the heavens and earth, possessing terrifying might. Regardless of whether it was the Pan-Tian sovereign, who had yet to recover to his peak state, or the terrifying figure that was merely an incarnation of a thought, any one of them possessed unimaginable power. Yishuan didn't leave just like that, although it would be extremely dangerous for either of the two sides, but he still decided to stay. Perhaps he might be able to reap some benefits. Snatching food from the tiger's mouth. If both sides were in peak condition, he definitely wouldn't think this way, but it was different now. If your original body was here, it might be useful. But now, with just a thought of yours? Pan-Tian's voice became increasingly indifferent. All kinds of terrifying attacks emerged one after another. Many of his techniques had already surpassed the ability of an emperor. Even Yishuan felt amazed as he watched. The power of the Great Way surged in his hands. Even if it was just a casual attack, it could bring with it the endless power of the Great Tao. Just like the sovereign emperors, they could also borrow the power of the Tao and the laws of the world, but they could manifest it in the form of martial arts. They could use martial arts to drive the power of heaven and earth for their own use, so that they could unleash 120% of their power. Their combat prowess would increase exponentially, and they would be many times stronger than a quasi-emperor. After cultivating to this point, this was just a basic accomplishment. Obviously, the Celestial Lord was another matter. Where the heart was, the Great Way was. Yishuan felt dazzled as he watched the battle between both sides. Many of the Great Way's principles were involved, which Yishuan hadn't come into contact with yet. Just by watching this battle, he felt that he had gained a lot. It wasn't always possible to see a battle of this level. Even if many people wanted to see it, not all of them had the ability and courage to do so. The battle between both sides was almost not limited to the entrance of the Pan-Tian Palace. Even the entire world was trembling, especially that vague figure that was drawing the power of this world, causing the entire world to be in turmoil. Many powerful creatures of the ancient foreign domain were roaring, but more of them were terrified, crawling on the ground, as if mortals had encountered the wrath of a deity. In fact, There was no difference in this situation at all. I'm afraid that person isn't a match for Pan Tian Tian Tian. Yi Shiwen quickly made a judgment, because he could already feel that cracks had begun to appear in the originally stable and solid world. Moreover, the cracks were densely packed, almost filling the entire world. All kinds of laws were drawn out, and the entire space no longer had any foundation to exist. Even so, he couldn't suppress the Pan Tian Tian Venerate with all his power. Although the Pan Tian Tian Venerate's power was restricted within the Pan Tian Palace, it was still extremely terrifying. This was especially so after he recovered a portion of his power. Yi Shiwen quickly figured out. Everything that had happened before was probably part of the Pan Tian Tian Venerable's plan. It was to attract many Emperor Lords to enter this place. Ordinary things wouldn't be able to restore the Pan Tian 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 Venerable, who was so weak that he was on the verge of death. Only the Emperor Lord Source would be of use. Yi Shiwen didn't know who had suppressed Pan Tian Tian. However, it was obvious that this person's martial power could be said to be extremely profound. Yi Shiwen had only seen 3 dreadful experts who had reached this level. The first one was obviously Emperor Primordius, who had seriously injured him. He had almost killed him in one fell swoop. The other 2 were Pan Tian Tian Venerate and that blurry figure. These 3 people had already surpassed the realm that Yi Shiwen was currently in contact with. So, even just watching their fight would be a huge benefit for Yi Shiwen. Sure enough, it didn't take long before the blurry figure was gradually unable to suppress the Pan Tian Tian Venerate. All sorts of attacks were easily blocked, and the nomological divine chains were gradually unable to hold back the Pan Tian Tian Palace. Bang! There was a loud rumble as Pan Tianzuan's sword pierced through the blurry figure. Although it was only a law condensed from the laws of the Great Path, the blurry figure was not Pan Tianzuan's true body. It did not have a strong defense, so it was pierced on the spot. The blurry figure was sent flying backward. The divine chains of law were constantly dragged in the void as he was sent flying, making a sound like metal colliding with metal. Then, when he flew to the limit, there was a bang, and he actually broke apart. Without the suppression of the blurry figure, the entire space began to fill with the terrifying aura of Pan Tian Tianzuan. At the same time, the space began to gradually collapse, shattering inch by inch. The coiling sky venerate is about to break free. Yi Shiwen immediately judged that the blurry figure could no longer be suppressed. When he was about to leave, the blurry figure immediately flew towards him. It should be said that the blurry figure was sent flying to his side. It was already on the verge of collapse, leaving only a cluster of spirit. Yi Shiwen immediately gritted his teeth. Fortune comes from danger. Let's go all out. At the moment when he made up his mind, he directly made a move and directly grabbed towards the cluster of spirit. Bang! Yi Shiwen grabbed the spirit in his hand. As his consciousness had completely collapsed in the battle just now, he did not have the slightest resistance and grabbed it in his hand. You're courting death. In the distance, Pan Tian Tianzuan noticed the situation here. Just now, he was fighting with a blurry figure, so he let Yi Shiwen hide until now. Now, Yi Shiwen actually jumped out directly in front of him. This was undoubtedly courting death, and he was instantly furious. This was because he had allowed Yi Shiwen to escape. It was an extraordinary shame and humiliation. Previously, there was a restriction outside the Pan-Heavenly Palace, so he couldn't even step out of the Pan-Heavenly Palace. However, that restriction had completely collapsed now. Someone actually wanted to snatch food from him. How could he let this happen? It directly turned into a terrifying sword aura and slashed towards Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's reaction was also dissatisfied. In fact, it should be said that he already knew that this would happen, so he almost flew out in an instant. Puff! This sword slashed down and slashed Yi Shiwen's body. In an instant, blood splattered out. His figure was slightly flustered, but he still stubbornly flew towards the distance. Roar! Pan Tian Tianzuan wanted to chase after him, but there was no way, because although the blurry figure was no longer there, he had not completely broken the seal. It was impossible to chase after him with great fanfare. And immediately after that, a terrifying aura directly flew over from afar. A shocking murderous intention turned into a shocking figure rushing over from afar. Wherever he passed, the world collapsed under his murderous intention. Shadi. Yi Shiwen began to frantically converge his aura as he flew. He suddenly understood that the commotion inside was too big and had finally attracted the attention of those old monsters outside. He quickly operated the Phoenix regeneration technique to suppress the injuries on his body. Otherwise, if those injuries continued to spread, he would die without a burial place. He gripped the ball of primordial spirit tightly in his hand and took the blow head-on. He had to admit that he had underestimated Sovereign Pantheon, even though he was extremely weak. Immediately after that, the world turned pitch black, as if it had fallen into a kingdom of night. A majestic figure cut through the sky, also heading in the direction of the Pantheon Palace. Yi Huang. After Yi Huang, a few more terrifying auras entered the cave. A figure seemed to be leading thousands of troops, with an invincible aura that wanted to turn the entire world into a battlefield. That was the famous Battle Emperor of the Heavenly Court. And not far away, a person came riding on the monstrous waves. It seemed that wherever he went, there would be a flood. It was the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor who could not bear it and appeared. Chapter 31-38. After the sky-shaking Turtle Emperor, another figure with monstrous demonic aura rushed in. It was the undead Demon Emperor. He was another invincible figure who could shake the entire Fortune Realm. It was these big shots who dominated the entire Fortune Realm. These old ancestor-level figures did not leave at all. They had been waiting here all along. Although Pantheon Tianzuan had gone on a killing spree, some people had still managed to escape. In addition, a battle that could destroy the entire world had erupted inside. How could they sit back and do nothing? They immediately rushed in. These people were different from ordinary Emperor Lords. They had even touched the edge of the Heavenly Master level. Hence, they were not that afraid of Heavenly Masters. Moreover, this Heavenly Master was only seriously injured. In fact, this Heavenly Master might even become their prey. They were not those Emperor Lords who could be killed by Pantheon Tianzuan. They were all Emperor Lords, but the difference in strength was like heaven and earth. As soon as these people entered, a fierce battle broke out. All kinds of terrifying attacks spread out. The terrifying shock waves swept out and directly swept towards Yi Shiwen, who was leaving. It almost made him unable to suppress his injuries. Although the battle between the two sides was very intense and very exciting, it was undoubtedly very dangerous for Yi Shiwen to continue staying. This time, he had been seriously injured twice in a row. Even the power of the Phoenix regeneration technique could not make him recover completely in a short time. He could only find a place to go into seclusion. Although this time was very dangerous, it was not for nothing. In fact, it could be said that he had gained a lot. Not only had his cultivation increased greatly, but he had also repaired the time robe and obtained something like the Tao Scripture Stone inscription. Now that the entire world was in a mess, it was the best time for him to leave. The news of Pantheon Tianzuan's resurrection spread throughout the entire stormy sea region overnight. It immediately shocked both sides who were in a deadlock in the stormy sea region. Whether it was the Fortune God dynasty or the foreign creatures, for them, the resurrection of Pantheon Tianzuan was not within their scope of consideration. Everyone thought that Pantheon Tianzuan had already fallen. It had never crossed their minds that he might still be alive. Therefore, the most direct result was that the Fortune Divine Dynasty and the Outer Domain's forces had lost more than 10 Emperor Monarchs in this incident. Most of them were devoured by the Pantheon Sovereign, becoming his food. When this news came out, countless forces were in a state of panic. Some of the forces left behind by the Pantheon Sovereign surfaced and sought refuge with him. In a short period of time, the Pantheon Sovereign's forces grew greatly. At the same time, he became an influential force in the Stormy Sea region. In this case, Yi Shiwen's matter had become a trivial matter, and no one continued to discuss it. Other people didn't seem to want to continue to pay attention to Yi Shiwen besides the heavenly Taoism. No one even knew whether Yi Shiwen had successfully escaped or not, because no one had actually seen Yi Shiwen escape. Therefore, many people speculated that he should have fallen inside. However, this was only what some people were thinking. Most people were focused on the revival of Pan Tianzuan. In particular, in the end, several Ninth Realm superpowerhouses joined forces to fight Pan Tianzuan. This made countless people's blood boil. That scene was enough to make them unable to contain their excitement, even if they only heard about it. Regardless of whether it was Yi Huang, the Battle Emperor, the Sha Emperor, the Sky-Shaking Turtle Emperor, or the Undead Demon Emperor, any one of them was unparalleled in the world. Given their strength, perhaps only an existence like Pan Tianzuan could make them join forces to attack. What was even more terrifying was that Pan Tianzuan still relied on the Pantheon Palace to ride the chaotic heaven-swallowing beast and escape calmly even under the joint attack of many old ancestors and emperor monarchs. Once again, everyone saw the terror of a heavenly lord and the power of a heavenly lord's instrument. Pan Tianzuan had just been revived. Even if he had devoured the source of many emperor monarchs, it was still nothing. In the face of the joint attack of several Ninth Realm emperor monarchs, he could still fall. Moreover, there were other emperor monarchs from other forces behind him. Those super powerhouses who had surpassed the Sixth Realm and couldn't enter should not have been able to escape. Moreover, these super powerhouses were extremely furious. After all, more than half of the dozens of emperor monarchs who had fallen had died at the hands of Pan Tianzuan. How could the forces not be furious? Even a heavenly venerate would have to bear a grudge if they were encircled by such a lineup. However, Pan Tianzuan had relied on the Pantheon Palace to fight and retreat. In the end, he had really escaped from the encirclement of so many emperor monarchs. This made everyone understand how terrifying a heavenly venerate was. After Pan Tianzuan had left, he had re-established the banner, summoned his previous deployment, and re-established the Pantheon Palace. After escaping from encirclement, Pan Tianzuan had recovered very quickly. Although he was far from his peak state, this alone was enough to make him not afraid of the attacks of any forces. For a time, the entire Stormy Sea domain was in a state of panic. Whether it was the Fortune God dynasty or the many experts of the Stormy Sea domain, none of them hoped that a top powerhouse like Pan Tianzuan would appear. Among them, the experts of the Stormy Sea domain were the most dissatisfied. In their opinion, if Pan Tianzuan returned, then they would have an overlord above them. How could they accept this? Hence, Pan Tianzuan had become the target of hostility from both sides. The three forces were constantly at odds with each other. Many people were speculating whether they would summon another allied army to kill Pan Tianzuan for good. In any case, the upper echelons were still able to maintain their calm. However, for the lower echelons, all kinds of killings had already begun. In particular, Pan Tianzuan had just established the Pantheon Palace, and he had been constantly attacking the Fortune God dynasty's forces. It seemed that he was trying to avoid the foreign life forms and temporarily avoid the sharp edge. He had no intention of domineering them again. In any case, although the plan was simple, it was very effective. The foreign life forms had indeed stopped attacking Pan Tianzuan's forces. Instead, they just sat and watched as Pan Tianzuan's forces and the Fortune God dynasty's forces attacked each other. They even hoped that more people from both sides would die. For a time, the storm of war engulfed the entire Stormy Sea domain. Under such circumstances, at a trench that was tens of thousands of miles deep in the Stormy Sea domain, a faint radiance would occasionally appear. It seemed that there was some kind of divine object inside. A figure was sitting cross-legged at the bottom of this trench. He was sitting on a cloud bed, which made him look extremely dignified. This was Yi Shiwen. After returning from the Pantheon Palace, Yi Shiwen had been cultivating and healing his injuries in this place. After being injured by Pan Tianzuan twice in a row, it would take a long time for him to recover. As for the storm in the outside world, he couldn't care so much for the time being. The effect of hiding in this deep trench was indeed remarkable. No one could find him. As long as he didn't take the initiative to attack, no one could find him. If an ordinary Emperor Lord found him, it would be a disaster for the Emperor Lord himself. It would be difficult for him to escape death. After healing his injuries, Yi Shiwen began to prepare for closed-door cultivation in order to break through to the seventh realm. But before that, Yi Shiwen forced out a wisp of his spirit. This wisp of spirit transformed into a spirit avatar. Please help me to go to Stormy Sea City and bring back the Tai soul condensation pill. Yi Shiwen said, "You and I are one. There's no need to thank me." Yi Shiwen also smiled slightly, and then his figure disappeared in this trench. Soon, Yi Shiwen's spirit incarnation had already flown out of the Stormy Sea region. His speed was extremely fast because he also wanted to go and return as soon as possible. The situation in the Stormy Sea region was too complicated. After all, it wasn't his main body, so he couldn't let his guard down. In order to be safe, Yi Shiwen also let the incarnation carry the Martial Emperor Seal. With the Martial Emperor Seal to protect himself, even if he really encountered a First Realm or Second Realm Emperor Lord, he still had the power to fight. The Stormy Sea region was very huge, almost like many worlds were pieced together. Fortunately, Yi Shiwen had already recorded the coordinates when he went there last time. Otherwise, he might really be caught unprepared. 3 days later, Yi Shiwen arrived at Stormy Sea City. At this time, Stormy Sea City seemed to be no different from when Yi Shiwen first arrived. However, he could see that the current Stormy Sea City was lax on the outside but tight on the inside. It looked like nothing happened on the outside, but in fact, it was already heavily guarded on the inside. However, Yi Shiwen understood after thinking about it for a while. Now that the two camps were in constant conflict, and the side of Pantheon Tion was constantly attacking the Fortune God dynasty, Stormy Sea region was a nail of the Fortune God dynasty. There was no room for failure. No matter how one looked at it, it was impossible for there to be no defense at all. Yi Shiwen pinched a technique and turned into the appearance of a burly man. Then, he went straight into Stormy Sea region. He had the pass that Dinda had given him previously, so he wouldn't be checked at all. Although it was heavily guarded, those high and mighty Emperor Lords still had all kinds of privileges. After entering the city, Yi Shiwen quickly went to the inn where he met Dendi and the others. However, at this time, the inn was already empty. This was originally just a place for those Emperor Lords to stay, so it was impossible for them to stay here all the time. There was only one shopkeeper left here. He saw Yi Shiwen come in and revealed his identity. He promptly said in a respectful manner, "Sir, Senior Dan Emperor told me to hand this over to you if you show up here before he left." As he spoke, he tore open a space, took out a jade box, and handed it to Yi Shiwen. And Yi Shiwen nodded and took the jade box. Chapter 31-39. This jade box was isolated from all probing of divine senses. It should be to prevent people from probing it with their spirit. Even the spirit of an emperor couldn't penetrate it. This jade box alone was very valuable. He wouldn't need to be so careful if Dan D was here. However, even Dan D had left now, so he must make some preparations. Otherwise, Yi Shiwen wouldn't be able to wait for the Tai soul-gathering pill to be discovered by other emperors. Yi Shiwen slightly opened the jade box. Suddenly, an innumerable amount of medicinal energy pervaded the air. However, it didn't have enough time to spread out and was absorbed by Yi Shiwen cleanly. He only felt that this wisp of spirit had a kind of metamorphosis. The medicinal efficacy of the Tai soul-gathering pill was still so overbearing. The shopkeeper stood respectfully at the side. He didn't look sideways. He knew very well who this person in front of him was. He was an emperor who was more tyrannical than his master. He couldn't covet such a person. "All right, I've received the item." Yi Shiwen glanced at the shopkeeper. "Help me to express my gratitude when fellow Taoist Dan D returns." "Yes," the shopkeeper quickly replied. Yi Shiwen directly disappeared from the inn after he finished speaking. There was a barrier in the inn. However, it was nothing for someone of his cultivation. He directly jumped over it. However, he wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he went to the Heavenly Commerce Alliance. Yi Shiwen entered the Heavenly Commerce Alliance. He contacted Elder Chun using the contact method that Elder Chun had left behind. Elder Chun hurriedly rushed over. There was a somewhat surprised look on his face. It must be known that this was a big customer. "Greetings, sir." Elder Chun quickly greeted him. Then, he welcomed Yi Shiwen into the secret room. After all, Yi Shiwen's identity was a bit sensitive. The experts of heavenly Taoism were looking for his whereabouts. Yi Shiwen certainly didn't care. However, he couldn't let Yi Shiwen make a mistake here. "I haven't seen you for a while. Elder Chun seems to be doing well." Yi Shiwen sat cross-legged on a cloud bed. He took a sip of tea. "It's all thanks to my lord's great blessing," Elder Chun hurriedly said. He wasn't being polite. It was the truth. If it weren't for Yi Shiwen, he wouldn't have his current status. Because of the business deal he had with Yi Shiwen, many tycoons in the alliance had a whole new level of respect for him. Therefore, his status had improved by leaps and bounds. Apart from the archer who was stationed here all year round, he was the leader of the Heaven Commerce Alliance branch in Stormwind City. And all of this was because of the person in front of him. There's no need to be polite. "Where's the golden cicada, Saint Emperor?" Yi Shiwen asked. "Master has gone to visit fellow Taoist, but I have already sent a message to him. I believe he will be back soon," Elder Chun quickly replied. No matter how much his status rose, it was still not enough in front of this person. With just a flick of his finger, he could kill him. And Yi Shiwen nodded slightly. He had thought it through in his heart. Could it be Fong Byron? It was not impossible. Both sides had a good relationship. Fong Byron had regained the Tao fruit of his previous life, and his strength had increased greatly. However, he still needed time to digest and consolidate. At this time, it was not impossible for the Golden Cicada Saint Emperor to visit and protect him. "By the way, I heard that your Heaven Commerce Alliance also sells information." Yi Shiwen asked. "Yes, our Heaven Commerce Alliance believes that there's nothing that can't be traded. All kinds of information are naturally included," Elder Chun quickly said. "If the Heavenly Taoism gives you a high enough price, can you even sell my information?" Yi Shiwen said with a faint smile on his face. Elder Chun suddenly felt cold sweat dripping down his back. He suddenly felt endless pressure because of Yi Shiwen's words. "That's absolutely impossible. My lord is a respected guest of our Sky Business Alliance. How could he possibly sell information? Moreover, the principle of our Sky Business Alliance is that harmony breeds wealth. Even if we obtain sensitive information related to the whereabouts of the various emperors, we will not announce it to the public," Elder Chun hurriedly said. He felt that if he didn't explain himself quickly, he would be killed. Judging from the various aspects of information obtained by the Heaven Commerce Alliance, this person in front of him was not a cruel person. However, he was ruthless. He could kill an emperor like the surest Saint Emperor without saying a word, let alone an ant of the quasi-emperor level like him. Yi Shiwen smiled slightly. The Heaven Commerce Alliance was not completely muddle-headed. They dared to sell information about the emperors everywhere. They simply didn't want to mingle well. Even a First Realm Emperor could cause great trouble for them. Destroying a few of their branches would be a piece of cake, not to mention an expert of his level. If he was determined to cause trouble for the Heaven Commerce Alliance, he would certainly make them cry in a rhythmic manner. Although there were many experts in the Heaven Commerce Alliance, it was impossible to withstand the anger of all the emperors. The businessman still had a shrewd side to him. "All right, I won't scare you anymore. I want to find some information here. May I know how much you charge me?" Yi Shiwen said. This was the disadvantage of not having a force. A lot of information could be found in the original force, but he had to come to the Heaven Commerce Alliance to buy it. It was a little troublesome. However, these were just trivial matters. He didn't take it to heart. That depends on what kind of information you want to find. There is no charge for an ordinary ancient secret or something like that for a customer like you. We will only charge if it involves some people and things of the present age, Elder Chun said with a respectful look on his face. Oh, Yi Shiwen's expression didn't change. He just said indifferently, "I heard that Pan Tian Tian has a Taoist scripture stone inscription. I want to find out what it is." Yi Shiwen couldn't act as if the Taoist scripture stone inscription was in his hands. Although it was true. "No problem, sir. I will help you look for it first. Please wait for a moment, Elder Chen said. Go ahead. Yishiwen nodded. Oh, by the way, send me some information about the human race in the Fortune God Dynasty. Sure, no problem. These are not new information at all. For a big client like you, it's all free. Elder Chen turned and left after finishing his words. Huang Xiaolong was well aware that this kind of information was extremely precious. After all, it was the accumulation of a force and inheritance over countless years. But on the other hand, it wasn't worth much because there were too many inheritances in the Fortune God Dynasty that had this kind of accumulation. In comparison, the benefits of trading with Yi Shiwen were far better than this. Yi Shiwen had decided that after breaking through to the seventh realm, he would go to the human race's ancestral land. Maybe he could meet the human race's seniors. In the Fortune Divine Dynasty, the various races lived together in large groups, but each race had their own ancestral land, which was also the last stronghold of the race. If even their last stronghold was breached, then this race would have no foothold left in the Fortune Divine Dynasty, and their annihilation would not be far away. This kind of situation was too common in the Fortune Divine Dynasty. There are thousands of races in the Fortune Divine Dynasty, and every day there would be a new race established, and a new race would be annihilated. The human race was no exception, but compared to the strong position in the myriad heavens, the human race was not considered a strong race in the Fortune God Dynasty. It could only be considered as a second-rate race, not a first-rate race. This was because there were many strong races in the Fortune God Dynasty. Just in the outer domain alone, who knew how many terrifying races that had produced emperor-level life forms. He had always suspected that the human race in the Fortune God Dynasty was related to the myriad heavens. This time, he would go and investigate. Maybe he would have the opportunity to meet the human race's great emperor. When he had been in the myriad heavens and realms, he had investigated and confirmed that there were a few ancestors of the human race who had gone to the Fortune realm. Among them, the most recent and most well-known was naturally the Qin Emperor. Yishuan also wanted to go and have a look. Anyway, he had no place to stay in the Fortune God Dynasty. The human race was his only home. Elder Chun didn't have to wait for too long. He returned with a jade slip and respectfully handed it over to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen immediately used his divine sense to explore the jade slip. The beginning of the jade slip contained a lot of information about the stone inscriptions of the Tao scriptures. It was obvious that Elder Chun had copied all kinds of records about the stone inscriptions of the Tao scriptures during this period of time. Many of them had come from different ancient books. After reading all of these, Yishuan finally understood the Tao scripture stone inscriptions. According to many rumors, at the beginning of the universe, before the chaos was divided, there was a scripture that described everything. It was the Tao scripture. This Tao scripture contained countless great Taos. Later, this Tao scripture fell into the hands of the founder of the Fortune Divine Dynasty, the Fortune Heavenly Monarch. After that, the Fortune Heavenly Monarch's cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds, sweeping across the world and establishing the foundation of the current Fortune Divine Dynasty in the desolate wilderness of ancient times. He pacified wars everywhere, repelled the attacks of many outstanding foreign creatures, and drove all these foreign creatures out of the Fortune Divine Dynasty, creating a great cause that no one could match. He was the first and only great person to be named after the Fortune God Dynasty. This Tao scripture disappeared along with the Fortune Heavenly Monarch, but there were several rubbing copies of this Tao scripture in the Fortune world, and the most famous one was in the Fortune Divine Dynasty. The reason the Fortune Divine Dynasty was able to produce a steady stream of experts was largely related to this Tao scripture's rubbing. Chapter 3140. Although the original copy had disappeared along with the Fortune Creation Heavenly Monarch, just the rubbing was still very precious. Those rubbing were not ordinary items. Something like the Tao scripture that recorded the great Tao of the universe was not something that ordinary items could carry. The objects that carried the Tao scripture were extraordinary divine objects. Although they were not comparable to the original, they were still very precious. As for these fortune divine dynasties experts, how could their cultivation not advance by leaps and bounds after studying the Tao scriptures rubbing? Moreover, the fortune divine dynasties experts were able to resist the foreign world's creatures' counterattack in the absence of the fortune heavenly monarch, firmly blocking them from entering the outer world. Later, the fortune god dynasty was in turmoil, and these rubbing of the Tao scripture were lost. Now, there is only one rubbing of the Tao scripture left in the fortune god dynasty. Some said that it fell into the hands of the heavenly Taoism, while others said that it fell into the foreign creatures. There were all kinds of rumors, but no one had an accurate answer. Even if someone obtained it, no one would admit it. There is no need to mention how important the rubbing of the Tao scripture was. Although it was not the only copy, it was almost there. These rubbing of the Tao scripture were personally made by the fate creation Heavenly Lord. After that, even the heavenly masters could not make another rubbing of the Tao scripture. Perhaps it was because they were not strong enough, or perhaps it was because they lacked the original Tao scripture. Therefore, these remaining rubbing of the Tao scripture became the objects that countless people secretly searched for. Among the rumors, there was a rumor that the Pantheon Venerable obtained one of the rubbing of the Tao scripture. Therefore, he was able to smoothly cut off his imperial Tao and recultivate the laws. In the end, not only did he become an emperor, but he also went one step further and became a heavenly master, dominating the Stormy Sea area. However, this rumor was ultimately just a rumor. No one had confirmed it, because there was no more accurate news until the Pantheon Venerable was sealed. Only Yishiwen knew that this rumor was true because the stone inscription of the Tao scripture had fallen into Yishiwen's hands. It turns out that the stone inscription of the Tao scripture has such an amazing origin. Yishiwen could not help but feel a little excited. The stone inscription of the Tao scripture was actually a rubbing of the original Tao scripture by the fate creation Heavenly Lord. This news was shocking enough. In the past, the fate creation Heavenly Lord relied on the original Tao scripture to control fate. Finally, he swept through the world and established the fortune god dynasty, suppressing many foreign experts. The power of the Tao scripture was evident, but the rubbing was certainly not as powerful as the original. Otherwise, there would be many fate heavenly lords. But even so, the Tao scripture stone inscription was precious enough. Tao scripture could even help Yishiwen step into the heavenly master realm. Even Pantheon Venerate had stepped into the heavenly Venerate realm because of this, let alone him. Yishiwen didn't think that he was inferior to anyone. No wonder Overlord Gui Yuan was so agitated. It turned out that there was such a secret behind it. After the Tao with the records, the stone in scripture, the world, the human race Tao, the human race, the human race, the Tao, the creation, and the emperor. The human, the Tao. After the records of the Taoist scripture, the rest of the information was about the human race. This information was much more detailed than the records of the Tao scripture stone inscription. Just as Yishiwen had guessed, the human race was not a race that originally existed in the fortune god dynasty. Instead, they migrated here with a powerful being tens of thousands of years ago. And this person, according to the information, was Swirenshi. Yishiwen did not expect that Swirenshi was the one who brought the human race into the fortune god realm. Compared to the heavenly emperor Fuxi, the earth emperor Shinong, the human emperor Xianyuan, the three sovereigns, the five emperors, and even the Qin emperor Swirenshi, as one of the ancestors of the human race, was undoubtedly much weaker. But as one of the ancestors of the human race, Swirenshi's contributions were self-evident. He led the human race in an uprising and opened the prelude to independence from the rule of the demon race and demon race. In a myriad heavens and realms, Yishiwen had even seen the Swirenshi's wood that was said to be left behind when he drilled wood to make fire. After Swirenshi came to the fortune god realm, the human race started to spread in the fortune god realm. After Swirenshi, several emperors appeared in the fortune god realm, thoroughly consolidating the human race's status. Although they were not a first-rate race, they had already escaped from the precarious situation they were in at the beginning. Therefore, Swirinchi enjoyed a reputation among the human race in the fortune god realm. He was known as the first ancestor of humanity. As time passed, the human race's footprints also spread throughout the fortune god dynasty. However, the human race's ancestral land was located in the eastern domain of the fortune god dynasty. Buzhou Mountain? Yi Shiwen frowned. He was not unfamiliar with this name. In the myriad heavens and realms, there were many legends about Buzhou Mountain. In the legends, Buzhou Mountain was the pillar that supported the heavens. When Buzhou Mountain collapsed, heaven and earth would collapse. Why was there also a Buzhou Mountain here? However, Yi Shiwen immediately felt relieved. Since Swirinchi also came from the myriad heavens and realms, it was not strange for them to have the same name. It seems that it's time to go to Buzhou Mountain. Perhaps I can communicate with the current human emperor. Maybe I can meet Qin Emperor Swirinchi and other seniors. Yi Shiwen thought to himself. This information was, of course, very important to him. It saved him a lot of effort. Moreover, the records in these ancient books were very rich. It was much more than asking people. Martial Emperor, your presence brings light to my humble dwelling. It's rude of me not to welcome you earlier. Saint Emperor Jin Chan's laughter resounded in the air. Before he arrived, his voice had already arrived. The next moment, Saint Emperor Jin Chan had already appeared in the secret chamber. He looked at Yi Shiwen, and his eyes flashed slightly. This was because he could see that Yi Shiwen was only formed from a wisp of spirit. It was not difficult to see this. It's me who came abruptly, Yi Shiwen said with a smile. As the two of them spoke, Elder Qin on the side had already retreated. The conversation between the two emperors was not something that a quasi-emperor like him could participate in. Martial Emperor, why did you come with your Taoist body this time? Asked Saint Emperor Jin Chan. Although the other party was just a wisp of spirit, he did not have the intention to underestimate him. At this time, it was equivalent to the presence of his deity. Not to mention that Yi Shiwen had helped him before and even saved him from trouble. The information obtained during this period of time was also shocking to him. After he and Yi Shiwen parted ways, Yi Shiwen did not leave the Kaitian Palace. Instead, he continued to lurk in it. Even top masters like Gung Jin Tiger Emperor and Gue Yuan Overlord were defeated by him. Moreover, they were defeated in the situation of 2 against 1. They were not a match at all. If the information collected by all parties was not so conclusive, perhaps no one would believe it. In particular, he was even more shocked. Few people really knew who Yi Shiwen was. However, he had traveled with Yi Shiwen for a period of time before, so he was the clearest about Yi Shiwen's strength. Before this, Yi Shiwen had clearly just reached the 5th realm. However, when the Kaitian Palace appeared, he had miraculously stepped into the 6th realm. Moreover, he was not just an ordinary 6th realm. He was simply at the peak of the 6th realm. The two veteran experts had been beaten to a state where they were unrecognizable. In the end, he even managed to escape from the pursuit of Pan Tian Tian. After all, besides the deaths of a few dozen ordinary imperial monarchs, the Eternal Saint Emperor and the primordial hegemon had perished in that battle. Even the Gung Metal Tiger Monarch's arm had been torn off, and Li Monarch had escaped with great difficulty. In front of such a peerless and terrifying person, everyone was too young and inexperienced. Under such circumstances, Yi Shiwen had escaped from danger. This couldn't help but make many people's jaws drop. Of course, what no one knew was that Gue Yuan Overlord didn't die in the hands of Master Pan Tian, but in the hands of Yi Shiwen. If Yi Shiwen didn't announce it, Master Pan Tian wouldn't come out and say anything. In fact, he didn't even know how many people he had devoured. To him, there was no difference at all in what kind of Emperor Lord was. They were all prey. Therefore, everyone thought that Gue Yuan Overlord died in the hands of Master Pan Tian. They didn't know that the murderer was actually someone else. In fact, no one would even think in this direction, because everyone was struggling to escape from Master Pan Tian at that time. For someone as bold as Yi Shiwen, it was almost impossible to pull a tooth out of a tiger's mouth. It was precisely because they knew the details of the situation at that time that no one would treat Yi Shiwen as a fledgling anymore. Even Heavenly Taoism, who hated Yi Shiwen to the core, was a little regretful at this time. If they continued to chase after Yishiwen, the cost would be too high. Emperor lords below the 7th realm would be courting death if they went. However, experts above the 7th realm couldn't be easily dispatched. If Yishiwen only hid and cultivated, could he continue searching like this for the rest of his life? Most importantly, Yishiwen had already entered the peak of the 6th realm. Who knew when he would cross that crucial step? By that time, there wouldn't be many people in the world who could deal with him. Yishiwen didn't know that many things were going through Saint Emperor Golden Cicada's mind in an instant. He just said, "It's the same deal as last time. I wonder if you're interested?" Saint Emperor Golden Cicada's eyes lit up as soon as Yishiwen finished speaking. Elder Chun had benefited a lot from the last deal with Yishiwen, and he had also gained a lot of benefits. Because of this deal, his authority in the Heavenly Commerce Alliance had also increased a little. Because the corpses of Emperor Lords and Emperor-level creatures were precious resources. They were even more precious than heavenly treasures. It was unknown how many heavenly treasures were needed to cultivate an Emperor Lord. "Brother Yi, do you still have them?" Saint Emperor Golden Cicada asked quickly. Chapter 3141. Saint Emperor Golden Cicada only felt that his breathing was a little short. If the heavenly treasures were precious items, then the body of an emperor was the most precious of treasures. It could be said that it was common to get one in tens of thousands of years. That was only possible after an emperor had fallen. It was impossible to supply it frequently. However, the body of an emperor was priceless in the black market. It would be bought by all parties almost as soon as it appeared. This was definitely a profitable business. When cultivators cultivated, they needed companions, techniques, and wealth. Not a single one of them could be lacking. This was especially so for the various resources. Even if they were sovereign monarch-level experts, they still couldn't be lacking in resources. This was because they still needed to break through to a higher realm. Otherwise, why would he join the Sky Commerce Alliance? Wouldn't it be better to be alone? Therefore, his mentality was very normal. Even if it was someone else, it would not be an exception. He didn't suspect that Yishiwen was deceiving him. Firstly, there was no need to do so. Secondly, the news of Yishiwen killing many emperors in the Pan-Heavenly Palace had already spread far and wide. As long as the forces were a little bit interested, they would know about it. And Yishiwen nodded and did not hide anything. "How many do you have?" Saint Emperor Golden Cicada asked. Yishiwen waved his hand, and suddenly there were more corpses with tyrannical aura in the secret room. Although they had been dead for a long time, looking from afar, they were still so lifelike, as if they were still alive. Tom did not leave any traces on their bodies. Looking at the rows of corpses of Emperor and Emperor-level creatures in front of him, even though Saint Emperor Golden Cicada was prepared, he still felt a little cold when he saw it. Including the corpses of the Emperor-level creatures that Yishiwen had sold to him previously. How long had it been? There were so many Emperor-level creatures that died in Yishiwen's hands. It was scary to think about it. Fortunately, he was not an enemy of Yishiwen. "What kind of price are you willing to pay for these?" Yishiwen asked calmly. Things like the corpses of Emperor-level creatures had always been the seller's market. He naturally did not have to worry. If the Sky Commerce Alliance did not buy it, naturally, someone else would. Golden Cicada, Saint Emperor calmed himself down and said, "These can be worth 10 level 2 dragon veins. It's a pity that there are no corpses above level 7. A level 7 body can be sold for 10 level 2 dragon veins." As he spoke, the Golden Cicada Saint Emperor actually felt a little unsatisfied. If it was someone else, he wouldn't have such a delusion. They had to collect the corpse of an Emperor Lord for a long time. Yishiwen was probably the only one in the world who was selling it in bulk. Yishiwen couldn't help but want to roll his eyes. Was this a joke? Did he really think that he was a wholesale seller? The current Yishiwen was not a match for an expert of the 7th realm or above, let alone hunting one of them. However, Emperors above Realm 7 were indeed extraordinary. These Emperors were only worth 10 level 2 dragon veins, which was similar to an Emperor above Realm 7. All right, Yishiwen didn't hesitate. This price was almost the same as what he had imagined. It could be regarded as fair. So, he naturally didn't hesitate. One handed over the money, and the other handed over the goods. Soon, both parties completed the transaction. Golden Cicada, Saint Emperor didn't ask where Yi Shiwen's real body was. This was also a secret. According to his understanding of Yi Shiwen, it was likely that Yi Shiwen was hiding somewhere for closed-door training. If an Emperor Lord didn't have any special matters to deal with, he would generally spend a lot of time on cultivation. Taoist Wudi, forgive me for being straightforward. As far as I know, you haven't finally decided where you belong. Have you considered joining our Sky Commerce Alliance? In terms of treatment, although our Sky Commerce Alliance isn't the best, it's also first-rate. If you join us with your cultivation and strength, you will definitely have a very high status, said Golden Cicada, Saint Emperor. Oh, why? Aren't you afraid of the anger of heavenly Taoism now? Said Yi Shiwen with a slight smile. Naturally, they have to pay some price. However, I think if it's for Taoist Jiana to join the Sky Commerce Alliance, I think they will be willing, said Golden Cicada, Saint Emperor. In the past, Yi Shiwen hadn't yet shown his value in this aspect. He could make the Sky Commerce Alliance willing to confront heavenly Taoism for him. However, it was different now. Yi Shiwen's cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds. Moreover, he had continuously killed many Emperor Lords. He had long become famous in the world. His value couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as before. It wasn't a big deal to go against heavenly Taoism for him. The main grudge between Yi Shiwen and heavenly Taoism was because of Azura, Holy Emperor, who was killed by Yi Shiwen as soon as he entered. As for those quasi-emperors, they were just some ants in his eyes. They didn't constitute a big problem at all. Yi Shiwen smiled and said, I will consider what Taoist friend said. For him, the current urgent matter was to enter the seventh realm. With the cultivation of the seventh realm as a foundation, he could go anywhere in the world. No matter which force he joined, he would have a guarantee. The treatment between the sixth realm and the seventh realm was like heaven and earth. He couldn't do something like giving up eating for fear of choking. Golden Cicada, Saint Emperor heard Yi Shiwen's words and immediately knew that Yi Shiwen didn't have the intention to join. He knew that Yi Shiwen had a firm mind. Since he had already made a decision, he wouldn't change it easily. Therefore, he didn't say anything more. It would be a waste of words. Well, Taoist friend helped us a lot last time. I haven't thanked Taoist friend yet, said Golden Cicada, Saint Emperor. We each took what we needed. Taoist friend, you don't have to be so polite. By the way, is Fong Byron's condition now? Asked Yi Shiwen. He has completely stabilized his realm. With his condition, he was able to regain his previous life's cultivation. He knew that I came to see Taoist friend, so he asked me to thank Taoist friend, said Golden Cicada, Saint Emperor quickly. It's good that he's fine now, Yi Shiwen said. If there's nothing else, then I'll leave first. Taoist friend, please take care. Taoist friend can leave through our transmission channel here. Golden Cicada, Saint Emperor obviously knew that there were many people waiting for news of Yi Shiwen. They couldn't wait to find him and kill him. Yi Shiwen didn't act pretentious and immediately agreed. The teleportation formation was inside the secret chamber, and it was obviously ready to be opened at any time to allow the guest to escape. The Sky Commerce Alliance had long since reached the point of perfection in this aspect. Over the countless years, they had long since perfected many aspects. When Yi Shiwen reappeared, he was already thousands of miles away from the sea border of Storm City. Yi Shiwen was just about to leave when he suddenly heard a burst of battle cries coming from the front. Yi Shiwen opened his eyes and saw that both sides were in the midst of a fierce battle. A small team of Fortune God Dynasty's cultivators was trapped in an endless storm. In the entire storm, countless foreign creatures were roaring. This was a huge country of foreign creatures, but it was just hidden in the storm. This kind of battle happened all the time in the Storm Sea area. Therefore, it was nothing to Yi Shiwen. However, he immediately saw a familiar figure among this small team of cultivators. Who else could it be but Wang Jun? It had been some time since they last met, and Wang Jun's rate of growth was very fast. His cultivation base was already very close to the sky human stage. His burial sword technique had also become quite proficient. He took the lead, blocking the path of the entire team and killing off the foreign creatures that pounced on him. Fortunately, this place was still within the range of Storm City. Therefore, there weren't any foreign creatures that were too strong. Otherwise, even the experts hidden in the Storm Sea area would be mobilized. Therefore, this area had become the best place to train newcomers. And Wang Jun was obviously such a newcomer. After Yi Shiwen's improvement, the might of the buried sword secrets had reached a whole new level. Moreover, it had become even more offensive. It was obvious that Wang Jun had displayed this set of sword secrets incisively and vividly. He had grasped the true essence of this set of sword secrets and had been unceasingly attacking without stopping for even a moment. But even so, as more and more foreign creatures besieged him, Wang Jun gradually felt that he couldn't withstand it. His other companions were even worse. "I'll cover the rear, you guys go first." At this time, the team obviously couldn't continue to persevere. They could only yell and let the others go first. They would cover the rear. The others were also very hesitant. At this time, if they stayed to cover the rear, the consequences would be unpredictable. It was very likely that they would die here. But if no one stayed behind to guard the rear, then perhaps their entire team would be buried here. "No, you'll definitely die if you stay alone. I'll stay with you," a woman in yellow said quickly. "You guys can't help me at all if you stay. I have a move that can hold them back." Wang Jun suddenly he said a little anxiously. The sword light in his hand flashed continuously and slashed down. But there were too many foreign creatures pouncing on him. As soon as he killed one, they immediately pounced on him again. It was impossible to kill them all. What move? Everyone was a little puzzled. They didn't remember any move in the sect that could hold back so many foreign creatures in one go. Today, they accidentally mistakenly entered the kingdom of foreign creatures. Under normal circumstances, disciples who hadn't even reached Dao confirmation would not dare to leave Storm City and come here. Although this was still within the range of Storm City, it was already at the edge of Storm City's territory. Extremely terrifying existences could appear at any time. "Oh, don't worry about it," Wang Jun said a little anxiously. "If you don't leave now, then don't even think about leaving later." Chapter 3142. Obviously, Wang Jun had been forced to his limit and had to use all his strength. Yi Shiwen's heart moved, and he was about to save him. Suddenly, he saw a girl being forced into a desperate situation by a few foreign creatures. She let out a clear roar and blasted her fist out, eating raw meat and drinking blood. This punch directly formed a picture scroll in the air, turning into a scene of ancient times. In that era, the human race was still eating raw meat and drinking blood. They didn't even know what fire was. In that scene of ancient times, the flame of the human race was growing strong, and a single spark could start a prairie fire. This punch suddenly attracted the power of heaven and earth, and the endless power of laws condensed, killing these foreign creatures in one fell swoop. Heavenly Emperor Divine Fist. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and immediately recognized this fist technique. He had seen this fist technique in the myriad worlds. Heavenly Emperor Divine Fist, it was said to be an unparalleled divine fist created by Heavenly Emperor Fuxi in the early years. In terms of power, it was almost no less than the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Both were top fist techniques in the world. However, for some reason, this fist technique was learned by the Qin monarch. Thus, this fist technique, which was originally Heavenly Monarch Fuxi's secret art, became famous in the Qin monarch's lineage. Following the Qin monarch's conquest of the world, it became famous again. In fact, he even knew this set of fist technique, but he didn't study it in depth. It was enough to have the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. At most, he comprehended the fist intent and comprehended the great way of Heavenly Emperor Fuxi, but he didn't study it in depth. In this set of fist technique, even the 8 diagrams that Heavenly Emperor Fuxi was good at were integrated into it. This fist technique ran through the long river of history, From the ancient times where people ate raw meat and drank blood to the turbulent era of the human race's uprising. It was mighty and mighty. His fist technique contained a complete set of human history, calculating the past and the future, plotting against the ancient times. The 8 diagrams technique was very obvious. The more Yi Shiwen comprehended the fist intent, the deeper his understanding of the ancient 8 diagrams. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen's heart moved, and he was a little interested. What are you still thinking about? Don't you want to leave? Do you want to die here together? Wang Jun suddenly roared, and a monstrous sword intent swept across his body, turning into a sword domain, constantly devouring the foreign creatures that rushed in. Heaven and earth. The power in his body surged out, but before he could burn it to the limit, he felt a monstrous force crushing his body. The sword intent that had yet to ignite on his body cooled down in an instant. Little Wang Jun, I didn't teach you to live as long as heaven and earth, just for you to blindly use it at this time. A cold voice came from afar. Uncle Yi. Wang Jun's face immediately revealed an expression of surprise and joy. He had heard this voice since he was young, so there was no mistaking it. Others also looked at Wang Jun in amazement. They didn't know why he looked surprised at this time, and who was this so-called Uncle Yi. On the other hand, the yellow-clothed woman seemed to have thought of something. She looked forward and saw a green-clothed man walking through the air step by step. There were clearly many foreign creatures around him, but they seemed to not see him. Moreover, they seemed to have a tacit understanding. Wherever he went, the foreign creatures would make way for him. That was why he was able to carve out a path among the countless creatures from the outer realms. Uncle Yi, why are you here? Wang Jun suddenly said in surprise. The feeling of being forced to a dead end just now disappeared without a trace. As the saying goes, when there is no way out, there is light at the end of the tunnel. This was the feeling. I just happened to see you here. You actually want to use heaven and earth. Yi Shiwen frowned and reprimanded. Heaven and earth was naturally the last move of his buried sword technique. The power of this move was very overbearing, and it could even greatly enhance the strength of people, giving them the ability to fight beyond their level. But at the same time, the side effects were also very big. Once used, even if one could successfully escape without dying, he would be seriously injured. In serious cases, it could even affect the Tao Foundation, and future cultivation would be affected. At that time, when Yi Shiwen taught him, he had already warned him not to use such a move unless it was a real life and death situation. After all, he was not like Yi Shiwen, who knew Phoenix regeneration technique. Even if it was a Tao injury, there was a way to recover. Once he suffered a Tao injury, then the rest of his life would be directly ruined. Wang Jun suddenly scratched his head in embarrassment. Although he had transformed into a few young masters in the sect over the years and enjoyed a very high status in the sect, in front of Uncle Yi who watched him grow up, he was still just a child. It's too impulsive, too reckless. Yi Shiwen shook his head and said. Others suddenly looked at Yi Shiwen as if they had seen a ghost because they were very clear about Wang Jun's character. Although he was not as arrogant as other geniuses, he was also well known in the sect for being difficult to deal with. It was not that his attitude was too fierce, but although it was not difficult to talk, it was extremely difficult to get close to people. In addition, the elders in the sect did not know why they valued him very much and even did their best to cultivate him, so it was even more difficult to get close to him. Even in front of the elders in the sect, Wang Jun had never shown such an expression. Could it be that this person was really some elder of their family? At first, they thought that some elder of the Wang family had appeared here. But when they heard Wang Jun call him Uncle Yi, it was obvious that he was not an elder of the Wang family. If that was the case, then who was this person? To be able to easily make the heavens pride, Wang Jun bow his head. Uncle Yi, long time no see. Where have you been? Wang Jun quickly withdrew his sword momentum and flew in front of Yi Shiwen, his face full of smiles. After their family moved, he went back again, but Yi Shiwen had already left, so he naturally could not find him, so he was also very disappointed. Yi Shiwen had watched him grow up since he was a child, and even taught him martial arts. In his heart, Yi Shiwen was like a father, especially after entering the sect. After a long period of time, he naturally slowly came to know how precious the sword's secrets imparted to him by Yi Shiwen were. Compared to this sword's secrets, the martial techniques of the sect were simply like a pile of dog shit and gold. So even after entering the sect, he did not practice other martial arts, but concentrated on practicing the buried sword secrets. And his master also very much agreed with him, because he was very clear that this set of sword technique was simply not comparable to the martial arts of their sect. I have always regarded the world as my home, and have no fixed residence. Stormwind City is only a temporary residence, Yi Shiwen said with a smile. I just did not think that we would meet again in such a scene. These past few years, your buried sword secrets have not fallen behind. Not bad. Several other people suddenly had the urge to roll their eyes. Wang Jun could be said to be the heaven's pride in their sect, who did not know how many people envied and hated him. But in the mouth of this Uncle Yi, there was only not bad, really a big tone, not afraid of the wind cutting his tongue. On the contrary, Wang Jun had a cheerful look on his face, a little embarrassed, said, Uncle Yi is right. My aptitude is poor. Practicing this set of buried sword secrets is a bit difficult. Until now, I only have this little cultivation. Several other people seem to be about to be hit speechless by these two people's words. You can only be regarded as this little cultivation. If your aptitude is poor, then what are they? Are they all idiots? Little did they know, in Yi Shiwen's experience, it was unknown how many amazing people he had seen. It was simply innumerable. Any one of these peerless geniuses was extremely amazing. Compared to these people, Wang Jun was indeed nothing. After all, his parents were only ordinary people. Wang Jun's talent was considered as a genius in the eyes of others. But in Yi Shiwen's eyes, it was nothing. In Yi Shiwen's eyes, an ordinary aptitude was nothing. Yi Shiwen's aptitude was also ordinary in his early years, but he walked faster than anyone else. He walked farther than anyone else, and he relied on far more than that space. In his opinion, aptitude was only a part of the success factors, nothing more. Therefore, since childhood, Yi Shiwen had instilled in him that his aptitude was ordinary, and he needed to put in more effort than others in order to achieve the great Tao one day and escape from this life and death samsara. Because of this, Wang Jun had always felt that his aptitude was poor. As for other people's praise, in his opinion, he simply did not care about it. After all, Yi Shiwen's teachings had long been ingrained in him. With your aptitude, to be able to cultivate to this point, it is considered not bad. Yi Shiwen said lightly, You are quite diligent in your cultivation, but it doesn't matter. You are only laying the foundation now. The key is in the future. Yi Shiwen did not take it seriously, this set of sword technique to the end. It was even possible to achieve the supreme sword principle. Naturally, it was not that simple. Along the way, it could even improve one's aptitude. The more one practiced, the clearer one's mind would be. Although the initial stage of laying the foundation was very fast, the speed in the future would be even faster. Just laying the foundation, what a big tone! Suddenly, someone said indignantly. He felt that Yi Shiwen was really too pretentious. Shut up! Wang Jun immediately glared at him. In his heart, Uncle Yi was like a celestial, absolutely not allowing anyone to gossip about him. It doesn't matter. Yi Shiwen was not as sensitive as Wang Jun. Be careful. Suddenly, the woman in yellow opened her mouth to warn loudly. However, just as they were talking, they did not know when an alien creature had actually touched the two of them. A huge claw slapped towards the two of them. Wang Jun hurriedly turned around. Just as he was about to act, he suddenly saw the huge claw explode, turning into a mist of blood that filled the sky. A strange power spread out, colliding with the alien creature. The alien creature actually disintegrated inch by inch in front of everyone. Chapter 3143. These foreign creatures could not get close to the two of them at all, and they immediately disintegrated. For them, it would take a lot of energy to kill an existence, but in front of this person, it seemed to be nothing at all. That kind of disintegration and even the collapse of every cell, this kind of scene of the collapse inch by inch became the biggest impact in their eyes. You don't know what's good for you. Yi Shiwen said coldly, and then immediately waved his hand. In an instant, the entire kingdom of foreign creatures that originally surrounded everyone, that incomparably huge foreign storm, began to collapse inch by inch in front of everyone. Then in just a few breaths, the foreign storm collapsed completely, as if it had turned in a light that filled the sky, flying everywhere. Looking at this scene, everyone was completely dumbfounded and shocked. How is this possible? Everyone could not believe the scene in front of them. It should be known that although this foreign storm was not the biggest one, it was already big enough for them. There were even mysterious realms in it, and there was a possibility that there were foreign creatures in the myth realm. It was just that such a small team of cultivators could not alarm the foreign creatures in the myth realm to make a move at all. For them, the myth realm was already a powerful existence that they needed to look up to. As for the experts at the Tao confirmation level, they were really already legends. As for the likes of the Emperor, for them, it was just a distant ancient legend, the invincible existence that surpassed the fortune god dynasty in the legend. No one might have seen it in reality. Because of this, Yi Shiwen had just waved his hand to make the foreign storm collapse in an instant. It had simply shattered their worldview. Was there really such a powerful existence? Even the high and mighty gods in the sect couldn't do this. The light that filled the sky, under the attraction of a force, quickly turned into a ball of light in the void, and then fell into Yi Shiwen's hand. Yi Shiwen directly slapped this ball of light into Wang Jun's body. Wang Jun immediately felt a powerful force enter his body and spread throughout his limbs and bones. However, his cultivation did not increase at all. Just as he was feeling strange, Yi Shiwen opened his mouth. These are the essences of these foreign creatures. I have already removed the impurities for you. These essences will be dispersed into your limbs and bones. They will improve your physique day and night. You will also get great benefits when you practice. Your cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds. Thank you, Uncle Yi. Wang Jun quickly thanked him. Although he had a close relationship with Yi Shiwen, he was not an ungrateful person. When the others saw this scene, they couldn't help but feel envious and jealous. Originally, there was a rumor in the sect that Wang Jun had a super backer behind him. The sword technique that he cultivated was not an ordinary technique, and it was impossible for him to cultivate to this level just by obtaining a fragment of it. At that time, there was even a master in the sect who coveted this sword technique and wanted to use the soul search method to find out the method of this sword technique. As a result, when he tried to do it, he was split in half on the spot by a sword chi from the depths of Wang Jun's spirit. He couldn't be more dead. After that, the rumor that there was a super master behind Wang Jun spread like wildfire. Now, there was finally a chance to see that person. In his opinion, Wang Jun's cultivation speed was only okay. Moreover, after obtaining the essence of this foreign creature, Wang Jun's cultivation had really advanced by leaps and bounds. How fast his cultivation progress would be was simply unimaginable. What was a stroke of luck? This was a stroke of luck. This was something that they could not be envious of. In front of such a terrifying master, they didn't even have the slightest thought of acting rashly. What a joke! That was a terrifying existence that could completely crush them to death with a finger. The road of cultivation is full of difficulties. I just help you clear some obstacles. As for how far you can go in the future, it all depends on you. Yi Shiwen said with a smile. Yes. Wang Jun said, Uncle Yi, my parents have also been saying that they haven't seen you for a long time. If Uncle Yi has time, come with me to see them. Others were completely shocked by Yi Shiwen's strength, but Wang Jun was not. Therefore, he grew up under Yi Shiwen's eyes. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen himself was omnipotent. There was nothing strange about this, but now it had been confirmed. No, I have something to do recently, so I won't go see them. Yi Shiwen sighed slightly. He knew that Wang Jun's parents were not practitioners. Even if they had some heavenly treasures, their lifespan was limited. The last time they saw each other, it might be forever. However, after so many years of cultivation, he had long been used to it. Life and death were only a part of the Great Way. In his eyes, everything in the world was Tao and contained the profound truth. Oh, Wang Jun was a little disappointed, but he didn't say much. By the way, something big may happen in the near future. You better not go too far from Storm City, Yi Shiwen said. This was because the battle between the Pantheon Sovereign and the Fortune God dynasty had already begun in full swing. Many Emperor Lords had already rushed to the Tempest Sea region, and many of Pantheon Sovereign's subordinates had also returned to his command. Both sides were fighting fiercely everywhere in the Tempest Sea region. This news had already spread to all the major forces, but only the major forces knew about it. For those at the bottom, they might not even know what had happened. As the saying goes, when immortals fight, mortals suffer. The battle between Emperor Lords was too far away for them. However, Storm City was the nail of the Fortune God dynasty in the Storm Sea area. It was bound to be a place of contention for both sides. In a battle of that level, people like them were just some ants, not even cannon fodder. Yi Shiwen was even worried that Storm City might be breached. Pantheon Sovereign's forces were huge. Not to mention the other forces in the Storm Sea area were also eyeing covetously. They had long wanted to uproot Storm City. If the battle did not go smoothly, they might join in. No matter how strong Storm City was, there was a possibility that it could be breached. Yi Shiwen frowned and said, "It's best not to come out during this period of time. Go into closed-door training in the city." Yes, Wang Jun naturally agreed. He had never thought that Yi Shiwen might harm him. After all, it was simply impossible. I'll give you another talisman. If Storm City is breached, crush the talisman, and it will teleport you away. Don't fight it head-on, Yi Shiwen said, and drew another talisman in the void. In a situation where they could not see, countless spatial laws condensed in it. The talisman was formed in an instant and flew into Wang Jun's hand. Everyone was a little dumbfounded. When they heard Yi Shiwen's words, they could not help but feel a little ridiculous. Even if Yi Shiwen had shown amazing strength just now for them, it was still an unimaginable myth that Storm City would be breached. Their ancestors were all born and raised here. It was possible that their children and grandchildren would also stay here. How could Storm City be in danger of being breached? How was that possible? They instinctively wanted to refute, but they did not know where to start. Obviously, the person in front of them was not an ordinary person. The level that those big shots like them could come into contact with was not something they could imagine. On the contrary, Wang Jun quickly nodded. He did not doubt Yi Shiwen's words. Since Yi Shiwen said so, it must be such a possibility. He did not dare to underestimate it. He quickly put away the talisman. By the way, who taught you the fist technique that you just used? Yi Shiwen looked at the girl who used the Heavenly Emperor Divine Fist. The girl suddenly felt flattered because from the beginning, Yi Shiwen did not care about the others at all. He only explained some things to Wang Jun. In his eyes, the others were nothing at all. Senior, it was a senior who helped the human race in the past. In order to repay the favor, he taught us this technique. It has been passed down to me for the 10th generation. The girl quickly said. She was not a human race. However, it had been passed down to the 10th generation for a long time. In fact, it was so long that she did not know the specific situation at that time. She only vaguely knew some things. Do you know the name of that person? Yi Shiwen asked again. He was a little disappointed in his heart. It was something that happened 10 generations ago. It was impossible to find out more about it. I don't know. I only know that the surname of that senior is Qin. The girl glanced at Yi Shiwen cautiously. It seemed that she wanted to confirm whether Yi Shiwen was the enemy of that senior. It seems that it is the Qin Emperor, without a doubt. Yi Shiwen secretly judged in his heart. How could the girl hide her thoughts from him? However, he did not expose her. On the contrary, this girl's cautious behavior had won him a good impression. She was not a person who would casually betray her benefactor. She knew how to repay kindness. The Qin Emperor had not misjudged her. Well, I have to go. See you later if there's a chance. Yi Shiwen disappeared into the air after he finished speaking. After Yi Shiwen disappeared, the sound of everyone's breathing could be heard in the air. The pressure in front of Yi Shiwen was too great. Although he didn't do anything, Yi Shiwen's amazing performance of killing so many foreign creatures with one strike still gave them a huge pressure, making them feel that breathing was a very difficult thing to do. They finally dared to breathe now. The pressure in their hearts had finally dissipated. Chapter 3144. Wang Jun, this is... After Yishuan left, someone finally couldn't help but ask. This is Uncle Yi, a neighbor of the place where I used to live. He watched me grow up, Wang Jun said with a sunny smile on his face. Others suddenly couldn't help but complain. Why were their neighbors so mediocre? There was no such a powerful existence among their neighbors. It was really infuriating to compare with others. Another series about other people's neighbors. Where did this Uncle Yi of yours come from? Someone carefully thought of an excuse and asked. I don't know. He was already living there before I was born. No one knows his origin, Wang Jun said. In fact, it was impossible to say that he was not curious. He had asked when he was a child, but Yishuan never said anything about this issue. He himself was in trouble. If people knew that they had an intersection with him, then it would undoubtedly be a disaster. So in this regard, Yishuan never said anything. Everyone had different expressions on their faces. Only they knew whether they believed it or not. But they were also very clear that this kind of thing was not something they could be envious of. Moreover, there were many things that they could not ask. Compared with the real top big shots, they were nothing at all. However, they were even more certain of one thing. That was to make friends with Wang Jun. That big shot was obviously very optimistic about Wang Jun. At that time, Wang Jun's rise was almost imminent. It was also very necessary to build a good relationship with a big shot in advance. Moreover, a thought suddenly arose in their minds. Should they not come out for the time being? It was a pity that when that senior said that he was going to go into closed-door cultivation, he didn't say for how long. Could he continue to go into closed-door cultivation like this? At this time, they gradually figured out. They no longer doubted the truth of what Yishuan said, because there was no need to lie to them. Moreover, Yishuan was not telling them at all, but he was telling Wang Jun, and they were just listening on the side. Suddenly, just when they were still thinking about what to do next, they saw a large dark cloud sweeping over from afar. They gathered their qi in their eyes, and suddenly they could see further. They could not help but tremble slightly. What did they see? They saw countless powerful armies covering the sky and covering the earth. That was not the kind of creatures that lived in the storm, but a true army, an army used for decisive battles between big powerhouses. Although they were only disciples of small sects, even disciples of small sects were educated in this aspect. Naturally, they were very clear that once a large-scale Tao soldier army appeared, it would be the ultimate collision between the two forces. The surrounding area was the sphere of influence of Storm City, so there was only one possibility. This Tao soldier legion was clearly coming for the Storm Sea region. Their ancestors had lived in Storm City for generations, but encountering a situation where Tao soldiers attacked the city was still rare. There weren't even many legends about it. However, according to legend, every time the Tao soldiers attacked the city, the people would be plunged into misery and suffering. It was unknown how many experts in Storm City had fallen. Let's go. Let's go back to Stormwind City. Wang Jun also saw the army of Tao soldiers rushing over. He did not dare to stay any longer and said decisively. Everyone stepped on a beam of light and fled in the direction of Stormwind City. In just a short while, they had already flown into Storm City, and the Tao soldier legion above the clouds had already arrived. In an instant, the entire Storm City's alarm sounded. One after another, ancient arrays began to be activated. One after another, experts rose into the sky. War fortresses, battle puppets, a terrifying battle broke out instantly. In the endless deep sea trench, Yishuan sat cross-legged on a cloud bed. In front of him, his incarnation directly turned into a wisp of spirit and reintegrated into his body. At the same time, the things he carried also fell into Yishuan's hands. Yishuan opened the jade box, and suddenly the room was filled with the fragrance of medicine. It was the Tai Soul Gathering Elixir. I finally got it. With the Tai Soul Gathering Elixir, the possibility of me rushing into the seventh realm in one go is much higher, Yishuan said to himself. Even with the Tai's soul-gathering elixir, he could not guarantee that he could definitely step into the seventh realm. Because this hurdle was too difficult. God knew how many people were stuck at this hurdle, and then there was no way to cross it in their lifetime. He was not in a hurry. After entering the fortune realm, he once again found the feeling that made his blood boil so that he could improve rapidly. In the myriad heavens, he was the supreme ruler. Even if other emperor lords appeared, they could not shake his position. In that case, even if he improved, the speed was very limited. Although for many emperor lords, Yi Shiwen's speed of improvement was amazing enough, for himself, he was still very dissatisfied. It was just that the environment of the myriad heavens was like this. No one could pose a threat to him. Even if Emperor Hunyuan dared to enter the myriad heavens, he would also be beaten up by him. There was no other possibility. After entering the Fortune God dynasty, he was like a dragon swimming in the shallows into the vast sea. Although there were many dangers, it gave him a feeling that this was the place he should stay. Moreover, the countless dangers allowed him to move again. In just a short period of time, he had already stepped into the peak of the sixth realm and was about to break into the seventh realm. If he was in the Fortune God dynasty, he might not even be able to step into the fourth realm. Yi Shiwen opened his mouth and swallowed the Tai soul gathering pill. Suddenly, he only felt a majestic power flowing into his limbs and bones. It was as if his whole body was full of power, and there was not a single part that was not surging with power. Yi Shiwen, who had already experienced it once, handled it very calmly. He constantly operated his martial power to subdue the terrifying power of the pill. Under his guidance, he continuously attacked the bottleneck of the seventh realm, that obstacle. Behind him, the Mingxin ancient tree firmly guarded his spirit, preventing the heavenly demons from taking advantage of it. When anyone was in closed-door training, they would attract the heavenly demons into their body. At this time, if not handled properly, the heavenly demons might occupy their body or even go berserk. It was not impossible for them to die tragically in the hands of the heavenly demons. In his body, the level 2 dragon vein that had been partially absorbed by him began to burn, turning into a monstrous spiritual power that surged into the mysterious space in his body. All kinds of mysteries about the seventh realm suddenly appeared in front of him. Countless insights about the seventh realm and the skills needed to break through were also deduced one by this mysterious space. Yi Shiwen's progress was also advancing inch by inch. The many obstacles that originally prevented him from advancing to the seventh realm were collapsing little by little. The power of the Tai soul-gathering pill was really amazing, and it pushed Yi Shiwen's martial power forward. Yi Shiwen's martial power also continued to grow under this situation, and the continuous growth of martial power also made his progress faster. These improvements accumulated and allowed him to rapidly advance towards the seventh realm. Time, minute by minute. Even Yi Shiwen did not know how much time had passed. His whole body and mind had been completely immersed in cultivation, and only knew that he was moving towards the seventh realm little by little. Suddenly, his surroundings suddenly changed. A room full of modern style appeared in front of him. He was sitting on the bed, and in the mirror beside him, he looked about 16 or 17 years old, and his face was a bit childish. Even his spirit was slightly in a trance. There was a sound of a door opening, and a middle-aged man pushed the door open and entered. He had a head full of white hair and looked a bit tired. "Dad!" Yi Shiwen could not help but shout out, and the middle-aged man's face showed a bit of a gratified smile. In the next moment, his eyes suddenly widened, and he saw Yi Shiwen grabbing the middle-aged man, and then the middle-aged man was grabbed into a cloud of smoke. In a flash, the surrounding modern room had disappeared, and only the darkness of the endless oceanic trench was left. A mere heart demon actually dares to disturb my mind at this time. Yi Shiwen continued to operate his martial power, digesting the power of the Tai soul gathering pill, and was not moved. He had encountered countless heart demons since he started his cultivation, and this level of environment could not shake his will at all. Most importantly, when he confirmed his Tao and became a god, he had already settled the karma of his previous life. It was simply impossible to affect his mind and obstruct his cultivation with the people of his previous life. However, when Yi Shiwen was about to continue focusing his mind, the surrounding environment changed again, and this time it turned into the scene of Yi Yuan's sect. This is endless. It seems like they want to die. Yi Shiwen's eyes were wide open, and he was infuriated by these endless heart demons. These heart demons wanted to take advantage of him, breaking through to the most difficult seventh realm. If it was before, he could only deal with them passively, because he could not find the base camp of these heart demons, which was the location of the heart demon heaven. But now it was different, and with the great illumination lamp, he did not intend to continue staying silent. He could take this opportunity to kill his heart demons, and his future cultivation would be much smoother. Quick! Yi Shiwen shouted, and countless bright lamps lit up around his body, as if they could illuminate the entire sky in an instant. Below each lamp was a barrel of Emperor Lord's origin source to burn, and ordinary fuel was not enough to support the illumination of the Great Illumination Lamp. Under the illumination of the Great Illumination Lamp, a faintly discernible road appeared in front of Yi Shiwen, leading straight to the depths of the sky. Even mortals could not see it with their naked eyes, and could only see it with magical powers. I want to see what you guys are up to. Yi Shiwen directly turned into a beam of light and disappeared into this road. Chapter 31:45. Yi Shiwen entered this shadowy road. This road led directly to a position in the plain. It was hidden between reality and illusion, and there was no way to find it. If it wasn't for the Great Illumination Lamp, Yi Shiwen wouldn't have been able to find it even with his remarkable abilities. The one who had truly constructed the inner demon sky was also an extremely powerful existence. Hence, many cultivators have been attacked, and only a few could fight back. This road was very long. However, Yi Shiwen's magical power enabled him to turn the great illuminating lamp into an array formation. The entire road was within his eyes. He could even faintly see the edges of other roads. They led straight into the mysterious and unpredictable heart devil sky. In just a few moments, Yi Shiwen had already reached the end of the path. As soon as he entered, he immediately saw a huge plain. Who is it? How dare you trespass into the inner demon sky? How dare you, human? Someone actually trespassed into the inner demon sky. Go, occupy his body, and go to the fortune realm to have fun. For a moment, all kinds of roars rang in his ears. Ordinary people would feel their willpower wavering just by hearing these demonic sounds, and they would soon be taken advantage of by the inner demons. Yi Shiwen didn't know the origin of the countless heart devils, but they rushed towards him one after another. You're courting death. Yi Shiwen had an indifferent look on his face. He stared blankly as these inner demons rushed over to kill him. They had nowhere to hide under the illumination of the great illuminating lamp. Yi Shiwen's body instantly turned into a flaming man after he had stabilized his mind with the help of the enlightening mind ancient tree. Countless Nanmingli fire crazily spurted out from each of his pores. In an instant, everything within a radius of several hundred miles was turned into a sea of fire. The heart demons that had pounced over screamed as they were completely annihilated. How can this be? How can he hurt us? These inner demons screamed again and again. Ordinary methods wouldn't be able to hurt these inner demons. At most, they would be chased away. However, Yi Shiwen was different. He had already mastered the art of creation, so it wasn't difficult for him to kill them. It was just that he hadn't been able to find their lair before. The Great Light Lamp. It's the Great Light Lamp. They seem to have recognized the Great Illuminating Lamp's array formation. The Great Illuminating Lamp was very famous. Countless years ago, there had been a man who had used the Great Illuminating Lamp to kill and injure the heart demon sky. He had killed his own heart demon and severed the path of the heart demon. The path that Yi Shiwen had seen when he had arrived was actually the heart demon path. It was connected to Yi Shiwen's body from the heart demon sky. As long as Yi Shiwen's heart demon was born, his heart demon sky would continue to exist for another day. What Yishuan needed to do was to sever this heart demon path. Then, the heart demon heaven would never be able to influence him again from now on. However, the sharp horn wasn't of much use. The Nanmingli fire on Yishuan's body continued to sweep, turning into layers of a sea of fire that seemed to sweep across the entire heart demon sky. These inner demons were tyrannical and could cause countless cultivators to fall into chi deviation. However, it didn't affect Yishuan in the slightest. The Mingxin ancient tree appeared faintly behind him, protecting him. Even the most tyrannical inner demons couldn't think of breaking through the seal. They could only passively take a beating. How would he have dared to go to Liangshan without some preparation? Yishuan wouldn't have rashly killed his way into the heart demon sky if he hadn't been prepared. Countless inner demons were burned alive by him every minute and second, turning into wisps of green smoke. At the same time, countless cultivators in the creation realm felt that their cultivation breakthroughs had become easier. It didn't seem as difficult as before. The interference from their inner demons was getting less and less. Those who didn't know better might even think that they had subdued their own inner demons. This was because their inner demons had all been burned to death by Yishuan. Yishuan continued to kill these inner demons as he ventured deeper into the heart demon sky. He wanted to find his own inner demons and kill them. Take advantage of the fact that it hasn't formed yet and behead it. Heart's demon would grow along with the growth of a cultivator and would become more and more powerful later on, unless there was a way to restrain it, like Yishuan. Otherwise, once the heart's demon grew to a limit, it would become a very dangerous thing. Yishuan held the Avicii sword in his hand and slashed out frequently. In an instant, thousands of inner demons were completely defeated. They weren't a match for him at all. How dare you? You're courting death. At this time, Yishuan had killed his way into the heart of the heart demon sky and finally encountered some decent resistance. It wasn't just ordinary inner demons. He even encountered an army of inner demons. These inner demons were the cream of the crop. Ordinary inner demons didn't even have a physical form and couldn't pose any threat to Yishuan. However, this army of inner demons had condensed a physical form and could cast some demonic arts and magic. They were a real threat to cultivators with physical bodies. You're overestimating yourself. Yishuan sneered and directly cast the magical power of Dharma World. His body became as huge as a pillar that supported the heavens. With a stomp, countless inner demons were instantly crushed by his stomp. The army of millions was instantly annihilated. In front of Yishuan, the army of inner demons couldn't resist at all. Yishuan was too strong. Every pore on his body was spitting out magical powers and entwined with laws. He swept out in circles and annihilated the army of inner demons. Get into formation. Although the army of inner demons had suffered heavy casualties from Yishuan's attacks, they didn't show any signs of collapsing. This was because there were just too many inner demons. There were countless living beings in the creation realm, and no one knew how many inner demons would be born in each of their lives. It could be said that the number of inner demons was several times the number of living beings in the creation realm. Just the number of living beings in the creation realm was already incalculable, let alone the inner demons in the inner demon sky. One by one, the inner demons got into formation and combined together. Soon, an incomparably huge inner demon was born. It was as towering as an ancient sacred mountain. It was an inner demon ancient ape. It stared at Yishuan with a pair of blood-red eyes. It was like a bloody hell, and an unknown amount of demonic power was emitted from its body. The inner demon ancient ape formed by the array of inner demons was actually close to the Emperor realm. This inner demon ancient ape grabbed at the void. Suddenly, countless inner demons attached themselves to it and formed an incomparably huge iron rod. What kind of magical power is this? Interesting. Yishuan narrowed his eyes, and a look of surprise flashed in his eyes. These inner demons were originally just some ants to him. He could kill as many as he wanted. However, things were different now. They were actually able to condense such an existence through the combination of formations. It was indeed an extremely amazing magical power. However, it was unknown whether it was created by the inner demons. This was because the countless inner demons in the inner demon sky were formed in the hearts of the living beings in the creation realm. Therefore, many inner demons were born with the martial arts and magical powers of those living beings. Yishuan's interest was piqued. He opened his dual pupil and instantly saw through the array formation of these inner devils. What an amazing magical power! If I rebuild the divine court in the future, I can get the disciples of the divine court to set up such a formation. It can even contend against the emperor realm. It's simply amazing. Yishuan's interest was piqued. At the same time, he began to use the mysterious space within his body and began to deduce. Only then did he discover that the grade of this formation was extremely high. It was almost comparable to the heavenly cycle stars formation that he had set up in the past. If he hadn't had the experience of setting up the heavenly cycle stars formation back then and had a deep understanding of formations, he might not have been able to understand it. The mysterious space began to deduce a lot of information about this formation. From this information, Yishuan was able to infer that this formation wasn't a formation that existed in the heart demon sky. It should be an ancient formation that had been lost in the annals of time. The inner demons in the inner demon sky had existed for too long. There were even some old inner demons that had existed longer than the creation realm. At this moment, the inner demon ancient ape launched an attack on Yishuan. In an instant, countless inner demons began to howl. Then, the iron staff smashed towards Yishuan as if it was tearing the sky and splitting the earth. The head of the staff had the intention to smash Yishuan into pieces. Bang! This iron rod directly smashed onto Yishuan's body, and endless ripples swept out in all directions. Countless inner demons couldn't dodge in time and were directly bombarded. They directly turned into a cloud of green smoke and couldn't be more dead. Yishuan didn't move at all. An attack of this level couldn't affect him at all. The inner demon ancient ape's eyes turned even redder. Countless inner demons threw themselves into its surroundings. Its strength was also growing inch by inch. Interesting, Yishuan sneered. Let's see if you could take this punch of mine. Yishuan punched out. In an instant, the power between heaven and earth was twisted by him. A terrifying force swept out and turned into a terrifying attack that instantly blasted into the inner demon ancient ape's chest. Bang! The inner demon ancient ape couldn't keep up with Yishuan's speed. It could only take the punch head-on. Its entire chest was pierced by Yishuan's fist. If it had been an ordinary creature, having its chest pierced through would have been a serious injury. However, this mental demon ancient ape was different. It let out a long roar, and countless mental demons flew up to fill the gap. In an instant, it had completely recovered, and its vision had even improved to a whole new level. Universal Staff Sweep. The iron staff in the inner demon ancient ape's hand smashed down on Yishuan like lightning. Chapter 31:46. This strike almost tore the entire world apart. It was an extremely ancient staff technique, and it wasn't a technique that existed in the inner demon sky. Even the mental demon ancient ape's dharma form was a ferocious ape from ancient times. The ferocious ape wielded an iron staff and swept through the world. It was invincible, and it wanted to be on equal footing with the world. However, such a ferocious ape had given birth to an inner demon, and its technique was thus spread into the inner demon sky. However, he had the enlightening mind ancient tree to constantly illuminate his sea of consciousness day and night. So, it was simply impossible for external devils to enter his sea of consciousness. And it was also impossible for them to take his power technique out of his sea of consciousness. This set of cudgel techniques was indeed extraordinary. Yishuan put his palms together, and immediately auspicious signs from all directions appeared on his body. They transformed into countless mythological beasts and directly resisted this cudgel. Die! The heart demon ancient ape let out a furious roar. Its body trembled and blazed with raging flames. It was a type of demonic flame that complemented the Heart Demon clan. It could instantly burn everything in the world to ashes. However, these flames seemed to lose their effect when they encountered Yishiwen's body. They couldn't do anything to Yishiwen at all. Yishiwen walked in the demonic flames, but they couldn't harm him at all. You know quite a lot of magical powers, but it's a pity that you can't master them. Even if you have power comparable to an Emperor Lord, you can't have cultivation comparable to an Emperor Lord. I'll let you know what it means to have the cultivation of an Emperor Lord. Yishiwen faintly said. Countless principles transformed into a huge martial character around his body. This martial character contained tens of thousands of martial arts principles. It was unknown how many magical power principles it was composed of and how many martial arts talismans it was composed of. It contained the deepest mysteries of martial arts. As a martial emperor, Yishiwen naturally had an unprecedented and shocking understanding of the martial character. It represented the most terrifying and tyrannical power. Under the blessing of this martial character, the radiance on Yishiwen's body was like a bright sun. He directly attacked and blasted out. It was unknown what kind of magical power it was, but it pierced through the devil flame and blasted into the hard devil ancient ape. Bang! The mental demon ancient ape let out a blood-curdling shriek. Its entire body looked like it was going to explode in the air, and there were dense cracks all over its body. Countless martial path laws penetrated deep into his body, killing the Heart Demon army that formed this Heart Demon ancient ape. Roar! The inner demon ancient ape kept retreating, trying to avoid Yishiwen's attack range. However, it was useless because it couldn't escape Yishiwen's attack no matter how hard it tried. Although the Heart Demon army was constantly replenishing, they couldn't withstand Yishiwen's destruction and slaughter. As he killed more and more inner devils, his understanding of the inner devils also improved at an astonishing speed. As he killed, he used the mysterious space to deduce the secrets of the Mental Demon clan. The more he understood about the Mental Demon clan, the harder it was for the Mental Demon clan to deal with him. Moreover, the effect was far from that. At the same time, among Yishiwen's 3,000 martial paths, the martial arts that belonged to the Mental Demon clan were also improving at an astonishing speed. Yishiwen's 3,000 martial paths were far from being as simple as 3,000 martial arts. It should be said that it included all the martial arts in the world, just like the 3,000 great ways. Could it be that there were only 3,000 great ways? That was simply impossible. It was just that the 3,000 great ways were the general outline of all great ways, and Yishiwen's 3,000 martial paths were the general outline of all martial paths. Now, the Mental Demon martial path suddenly stood out from the 3,000 martial paths. It transformed into endless demonic aura and gradually formed an independent type of martial arts that could even compete with other demonic path martial arts. The Mental Demon martial path was very domineering, and its attack method was very strange. For Yishiwen, it was also a brand new domain and a brand new attack method. Even the deduction of the Mental Demon martial path triggered many demonic path martial arts to blossom with dazzling light at the same time, allowing his understanding of many demonic path martial arts to further improve. This was simply incredible. Because Yishiwen had once obtained the word demon, it could be said that he had a very deep understanding of demonic path martial arts. His understanding of demonic path martial arts had almost reached a limit, no less than the many emperor lords of the demonic religion in the fortune world. But now his understanding of demonic path martial arts had actually improved to the next level. This made him feel a sense of joy. Many of the martial arts that he possessed were related to demonic path, such as the 6 paths of reincarnation fist, the demon wings, and so on. The improvement of his understanding of demonic path martial arts was of great benefit to him. Again, Yishiwen was in a very good mood. He directly attacked the Heart Devil Ancient Ape. Others might be afraid of these Heart Devils, but Yishiwen was not. Whether it was the defensive treasures he possessed or his own cultivation, it was enough for him to go on a killing spree. Bang! 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 Yishuan directly chased after the mental demon Ancient Ape. He only felt that with every attack, his understanding of demonic path was a little stronger. The more he fought, the stronger he became. In particular, the 6 paths of reincarnation fist was constantly bombarded. Life and death, the way of reincarnation, everything was under his control. This mental demon, Ancient Ape, was constantly bombarded, but became more ferocious. These mental demon, Ancient Apes, formed by the mental demon army, did not care about life and death. Even if their bodies were smashed to pieces, they could still be reborn at the same time. This was an existence that was even more amazing than the Emperor Lord's recovery ability. However, Yishuan also hoped that the mental demon Ancient Ape could hold on for a little longer. That way, he would have enough time to understand the martial arts of mental demons. Above Yishuan's head, an ancient character of the word heart began to gradually take shape. From the beginning, it was incomplete to gradually complete, from illusory to a solid state. This represented that Yishuan's understanding of the way of mental demons was also improving at an astonishing speed. When his heart character was completely formed, his understanding of mental demons could be considered to have reached a whole new level. He could even comprehend many unique mental demon martial arts from this heart character. And that was exactly what Yishuan was doing now. Many thoughts about the heart demon martial arts flashed through his mind. Many magical powers and martial arts were slowly taking shape. Among his 3,000 martial arts, the way of mental demons was also gradually taking shape. It contended and competed with other demonic path martial arts. This made his already strong demonic path martial arts even more powerful. Although both sides were competing with each other for dominance, it was also increasing the power of demonic path martial arts. This was a healthy competition, and Yishuan was also happy to see it happen. The collision of 2 completely different demonic paths could catalyze an even more brilliant demonic path civilization. As time passed, more and more mental demons rushed over, but it was useless. Ordinary mental demons could not even harm Yishuan. Finally, the heart character on top of Yishuan's head was completely formed. His understanding of the heart character had also reached a realm that no one in the past and no one in the future could match. And the price of all this was that he had to burn 3 out of the 10 level 2 dragon veins that he had just obtained. All of them were swallowed by the mysterious space. In order to deduce it in a short period of time, Yishuan also went all out. It's time. Yishuan opened his eyes and roared. He directly punched through the mental demon Ancient Ape's chest, but this time was different. This time, not only did it simply punch through the mental demon Ancient Ape's chest, but it also directly shattered the formation that formed the mental demon Ancient Ape. The reason why he had tolerated the inner demon Ancient Ape until now, apart from the inner demons and the Tao of the inner demon, was so that he could completely deduce the formation. Even with his understanding of formations, he had to burn 2 level 2 dragon veins to finally deduce it. These were very high-level magical powers, even for an Emperor Lord. It was not like the heavenly cycle star formation, which belonged to the blueprint and the experience of the predecessors, so there was no need for him to deduce it from scratch. But even so, Yishuan's harvest was still very huge. Without the support of the formation, this mental demon Ancient Ape could no longer be like before. No matter how much it lost, it could automatically be replenished. It directly collapsed on the spot. The mental demon army was directly grabbed by Yishuan, making his heart character even more solid. Yishuan completely dispelled those mental demons and snatched the formation diagram that formed this formation. To set up a formation, having or not having a formation diagram was completely different. With the formation diagram, one could rely on the formation diagram to complete it quickly. But without the formation diagram, the price to complete it would be far greater. This was also a precious treasure, so Yishuan naturally had to keep it. At this moment, the heart character above his head had completely fused with Yishuan. In an instant, it was like he had transformed into a demon emperor of mental demons, controlling the countless mental demons in the universe. Around him, The mental demons did not even dare to escape. They all knelt down. This was the power that Yi Shiwen had gained after completely comprehending the heart character. If he wanted to, he could even directly join the mental demon sky and become a demon emperor. However, he had no interest in doing so. At this stage, killing or not killing his mental demons no longer made any difference. His mental demons could no longer pose any threat to him. They did not even dare to appear in front of him, as they would be controlled by him the moment they appeared. However, he still had to get rid of future troubles. As long as his mental demons existed, there was a possibility that they could be used to threaten him. He continued deeper into the mental demon sky. Chapter 31:47. However, Yi Shiwen's unbridled massacre quickly alarmed the tyrannical existences in the depths of the inner demon sky. The inner demon sky was able to withstand the joint attack of the Fortune God dynasty and the alien life forms. Naturally, it was impossible that the inner demon sky did not have any trump cards. A tyrannical aura spread out from the depths of the inner demon sky. An army appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. There were people of all races, and all of them had physical bodies. They were not like the inner demon ancient ape, which had been forcibly materialized. Instead, they had real physical bodies. However, their eyes shone with an astonishing demonic light. This should be the army that fought against the inner demon sky back then, but was taken advantage of by the inner demon sky. Now, they have completely transformed into the inner demon sky's hired thugs, charging and breaking through the enemy lines for them. Yi Shiwen looked at the army in front of him and immediately understood. These inner demons should have already noticed that Yi Shiwen's will was extremely firm with the protection of the great illumination lamp and the enlightening mind ancient tree. No one could shake him. Moreover, Yi Shiwen had condensed the word heart. At this time, not only were these inner demons unable to shake Yi Shiwen's will, but they would also take advantage of the situation and become Yi Shiwen's food, allowing the condensation of the word heart to proceed more smoothly. When that happened, not only would they not be able to kill Yi Shiwen, but they would also make Yi Shiwen's momentum even more rampant. Since they could not shake Yi Shiwen mentally, they might as well destroy him physically. However, they had underestimated Yi Shiwen. Although he was not Pan Tian Tianzuan, he was definitely not someone that ordinary people could deal with. Endless phoenix flames began to emit from Yi Shiwen's body. These flames each transformed into a small phoenix, and they directly rushed into the army. In an instant, many experts in the army screamed as they were burned to ashes. At Yi Shiwen's level, ordinary existences, no matter how many of them there were useless. They could not pose any threat to him at all. Suddenly, the originally awe-inspiring army was in chaos. Yi Shiwen took advantage of the situation and directly rushed into the fray. He grabbed the Avicii sword in his hand and swung it out. Instantly, thousands of soldiers exploded on the spot, turning into a cloud of blood mist. They did not even have the chance to be reborn. Yi Shiwen's footwork was mysterious, and all the attacks that came to his side seemed to be directed by someone and directly bypassed them. It was impossible to get close to him. Everyone could see that this wasn't some kind of magical power. It was just a kind of mysterious footwork. Yi Shiwen's agility technique had reached an earth-shattering level no matter how dense the opponent's attacks were. Yi Shiwen strolled leisurely in the courtyard. He directly killed his way into the army and started a massacre. All the magical powers manifested around him. Every kind of magical power and martial arts turned into an incarnation of the great Tao. They directly manifested and started a massacre. In an instant, it seemed as if Yi Shiwen's body had transformed into a myriad of clones. He rushed out and beheaded those experts. Wherever he went, those experts were beheaded one after another. Wails and cries could be heard everywhere. Even if there were some sovereign emperors in the team, they couldn't do anything in the face of such a powerful Yi Shiwen. They couldn't even get close to him before they were blasted away. Once these people attacked, Yi Shiwen would personally attack and blast them away or kill them. For him, even if he was in the depths of the endless army, there wasn't the slightest change. These threats seemed as if they didn't exist in his eyes. He didn't know how long he had been killing. It seemed as if only a moment had passed, but also as if a century had passed. It was unknown how many experts had died tragically in the hands of Yi Shiwen. In front of Yi Shiwen, everything was too fragile. Even the sovereign emperors couldn't resist Yi Shiwen's attack. In this army, there weren't two tyrannical top experts. Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid of the sovereign emperors among those inner demons. If they dared to appear, Yi Shiwen would directly grab them and kill them. The inner demons of the sovereign emperor level were no problem for him at all. Unless the inner demons of the heavenly master level appeared, then Yi Shiwen would have a headache. Whether it was the great illuminating lamp or the enlightening mind ancient tree, they were too restraining for the inner demons. Finally, the killing continued until the inner demons couldn't take it anymore. If this continued, the losses would be too great. Stop! A loud roar came from all directions. Then, a group of figures surrounded Yi Shiwen. The army quietly retreated, and some of them were in a state of chaos. These figures were actually sovereign emperors who had obtained inner demons or had been invaded by them. They looked at Yi Shiwen helplessly because their methods couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen. These sovereign emperor-level inner demons would be courting death if they went. Other sovereign emperors with physical bodies weren't a match for them. Yi Shiwen also stopped. The Avicii sword's tip was still dripping with blood. Even though he was surrounded by so many sovereign emperors, he wasn't very nervous because he knew that these sovereign emperors weren't a threat to him at all. The only thing he was afraid of was the ancestor of the heart demon who had established the heart demon heaven. That terrifying existence was said to be the inner demon of the fortune heaven lord. Later on, he broke away from the fortune heaven lord and established the heart demon heaven on his own. His strength was unfathomable. Back then, he had led an army of inner demons to invade the fortune realm on a large scale. In the end, he was seriously injured by the fortune heaven lord at his peak. He fled into the endless void to establish the heart demon heaven. Although he looked battered and exhausted, and the army he brought with him was completely annihilated, no one dared to underestimate this ancestor of the heart demon heaven. After the fortune heaven lord's cultivation of the great Tao was complete, only the ancestor of the heart demon heaven could withstand a blow from the fortune heaven lord. The others couldn't even withstand a single blow. Otherwise, the fortune heaven lord wouldn't have been able to establish his fortune god dynasty in the fortune realm, which was filled with experts. Human, you've gone too far. No one has ever dared to commit such a massacre in the heart demon heaven. A sovereign emperor of the heart demon heaven said, suppressing his anger. It was a great humiliation to be forced into their lair to commit such a massacre. These inner demons also felt ashamed. No one has ever been here. Why do I remember that Pan Tian Tian killed his inner demons here, and then embarked on the path of invincibility? Yi Shiwen said with a cold smile. You, the sovereign emperors of the heart demon heaven, looked at each other. They hadn't expected Yi Shiwen to mention Pan Tian Tian. That was indeed a scar in their hearts. The huge heart demon heaven had actually allowed him to come and go as he pleased. It was a great humiliation. What was even more humiliating than Pan Tian 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 was that this person's cultivation was lower than Pan Tian 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 Tian's, but they still couldn't do anything to him. They could only look on helplessly. What do you want? Someone asked coldly. What do I want? What do I want? It's very simple. I only want one thing, and that is to hand over my inner demons. As long as I kill them, I'll leave immediately. Yi Shiwen had never thought of slaughtering the entire heart demon heaven. It was simply too unrealistic. Even the tyrannical lord of fortune creation, heaven hadn't been able to do such a thing. Although he didn't know whether it was because he disdained to do such a thing, it proved that it wasn't as simple as Yi Shiwen thought. If it could be easily destroyed, Lord of Fortune Creation would only need a palm strike to shatter the entire world, and the heart demon heaven wouldn't even exist. This is impossible. Many sovereign emperors of the heart demon heaven couldn't restrain their anger. Then I'll kill until you think it's possible. With that, Yi Shiwen went on a killing spree again. He charged into the army and began a massacre. Thousands of experts were killed by him every second. There were many dragon veins in his body, and the spiritual energy was as vast as the sea. He didn't have to worry about not having enough power. He could attack with all his might. "Stop. We agree to your terms." At this moment, some sovereign emperors couldn't help but speak up. Deep down, they were extremely sullen. When had they ever been forced to this extent by a real existence? From this perspective, the person before them was truly terrifyingly powerful. It was a pity that the old ancestor was still in a state of deep slumber. Otherwise, even if he had the guts to come, he definitely wouldn't have had the chance to escape. As he spoke, some inner demons appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. They all looked like Yi Shiwen and were born from his heart. They were inner demons that had been separated from his body. Some of them had grown very quickly, and some had even reached the level of a quasi-emperor. Although inner demons and cultivators were different, they were closely related. If Yi Shiwen hadn't had the Mingxin ancient tree to suppress his mind all these years, these inner demons wouldn't have been able to develop at all. Now, even inner demons at the level of sovereign emperors had appeared. Even so, relying on Yi Shiwen's rapid progress over the years, his inner demons had also made great progress. The two were dependent on each other and couldn't develop independently. Yi Shiwen's inner demons were constantly roaring and struggling to escape. However, Yi Shiwen wouldn't give them the chance to do so. He blew out a breath on the spot and turned it into endless gung metal evil qi. These inner demons were immediately blown away and their souls scattered. They couldn't be more dead. After sweeping away these inner demons, Yi Shiwen suddenly felt that his eyes lit up and his mind became clear. This was clearly a sign that the barrier had been swept away and he had advanced to the next level. His cultivation, which had been stuck at the peak of the sixth realm, was also breaking through inch by inch. Dense cracks appeared on the realm barrier that was already on the verge of collapse. He was about to break through. Yi Shiwen was secretly delighted, but there was no change in his expression. He just said, "Since I've killed all of them, I'll be leaving." After saying that, Yi Shiwen turned into a ball of light and disappeared in that ancient road. Chapter 3148. How arrogant. He's simply arrogant. If it wasn't for the fact that Ancestor is creating the heart demon Grandao and can't spare himself to pry into creation, he would surely die a graveless death. "I'm going to die of anger. I'm going to die of anger." He's too arrogant. Originally, I was very optimistic about this martial emperor's inner demon. After a few more years of nurturing, he would become an emperor lord-level inner demon. Then, the strength of our clan would grow a lot stronger. This Yi Shiwen had the hope of making a breakthrough into the heavenly master realm. His inner demon also had unlimited potential. Unfortunately, it was destroyed like this. Many heart demon sovereign emperors immediately flew into a rage. When had they ever felt so aggrieved? This was simply too much. These inner demons who were able to become emperors were naturally not ordinary people. It should be said that their true bodies were not ordinary people. Many of them were the inner demons of the emperor lords of the creation realm or the emperor-level life forms. It was precisely because they were born so extraordinary that they were able to stand out among the many inner demons and become heart demon emperors. It was the same for Yi Shiwen's inner demons. They were heavily nurtured in the heart demon heaven. However, only one of these inner demons would eventually rise above the rest and attain the emperor realm. In their opinion, they might even have the opportunity to attack Yi Shiwen's main body and seize his physical body. With the two of them working together, they would become invincible and break through to the heavenly lord realm. That would be truly incredible. The birth of any heavenly lord would shake the world. No matter which side it was, it would attract endless attention. Who would have thought that Yi Shiwen would force them to hand over Yi Shiwen's heart's devil in order to protect themselves? Otherwise, this lunatic would really sweep away everything they had accumulated for thousands of years. It wasn't that there weren't any masters among the inner demons. There were even existences of the ninth realm. However, They were limited by their own special circumstances and couldn't cause a fundamental impact on Yishuan. They could only watch helplessly as he wreaked havoc. Yet, among those sovereign emperors who had their physical bodies taken away, there were no truly powerful sovereign emperors. In fact, there was not even a single sovereign emperor who was above the seventh realm. If there were truly such powerful existences, it was unlikely that their physical bodies would be taken away by the inner demon. It was not the first time that an existence of that level had dealt with an inner demon. Furthermore, they all had their own trump cards. The probability of an inner demon taking advantage of them was too low. It was precisely because of this situation that Yi Shiwen took advantage of it. When Old Ancestor comes out of seclusion, the first thing he will do is project his projection into the fortune realm and kill this fiend. A mental demon, Sovereign Emperor, said through gritted teeth. But now that his heart demons have been killed, our connection with him has been severed. I'm afraid it will be very difficult to find him. A heart demon, Sovereign Emperor, could not help saying. These inner demons were able to accurately locate Yi Shiwen by relying on the connection between them. However, Yi Shiwen's inner demons had been completely killed. Therefore, Inner Demon Heaven had completely lost control of Yi Shiwen and could no longer exert any influence on him. Given their cultivation, it was impossible for them to influence a mortal like Yi Shiwen. When the Old Ancestor wakes up, there will naturally be a way. The Old Ancestor possesses remarkable abilities, and the Tao of divination is directly derived from the fortune creation Heavenly Lord. It will be a piece of cake to divine his whereabouts. Many mental demon sovereign emperors were very confident in their Old Ancestor. This was because the Old Ancestor originated from the fortune creation Heavenly Lord, the #1 inner demon since ancient times. Many of his magical powers and martial arts were unimaginable to them. Even the Tao of cultivation of the inner demons was created by their Old Ancestor. Otherwise, the inner demons in the past would at most find a way to seize the physical body to cultivate. Cultivating to become an emperor with the body of an inner demon was simply a fantasy in the past. This was what happened after the birth of the Old Ancestor. Sooner or later, we will take revenge for today's incident. Yi Shiwen submerged into that ancient path. Naturally, he didn't know that the heart demon ancestor was planning to take revenge for today's incident. It wasn't something to be afraid of for him. Even if the heart demon ancestor were to descend to the mortal world, he would need to be able to defeat so many ancient existences in the fortune world. There were many experts in the fortune realm, and the true experts were hidden very deeply. There were many who could turn the world upside down. In fact, there were even supreme existences who had followed the fortune creation Heavenly Lord to war. Even if the Old Ancestor descended to the lower realm, he would not be able to gain any benefits. To the Old Ancestor, if he were to project an incarnation down here, it would just be a piece of cake for him. It just so happened that he could perfect the Tao of the heart demon. The ancient road had started to collapse as his inner demons had been slain. It had gradually become unstable. However, Yi Shiwen's body had stabilized itself and hadn't collapsed. However, it was only a matter of time before it collapsed. Cutting off this path would not only cut off Yi Shiwen's future path to the heart demon sky, but would also cut off the path that the inner demons could directly find him. Yi Shiwen's initial idea was to secretly calculate the coordinates in the heart demon sky. Who knows, it might come in handy in the future. However, after entering the heart demon sky, he realized that he was too naive. The heart demon sky contained an evil power. Everything was like chaos and fog, and he could not calculate the specific coordinates at all. This was probably the doing of the Old Ancestor. However, he soon felt relieved. If not for this, the heart demon sky would have long been conquered by the fortune realm. They would not have been allowed to be so arrogant. This was because the heart demon sky was an unforgettable existence to any cultivator in the fortune realm. It was precisely because of the existence of the inner demons that it made the journey more difficult. It was unknown how many people had died because of the inner demons. As this ancient road crumbled inch by inch, Yishuan only felt that the barrier to the seventh realm was also crumbling inch by inch, and the seventh realm was only in front of him. In the next instant, Yishuan reappeared in the endless oceanic trench. Everything was the same as before he had left. The array he had left behind was also operating as usual. He immediately sat cross-legged on the cloud bed and closed all the pores on his body. The final medicinal power of the Tai Vitality Convergence Pill was exploding. It almost rushed out of his physical body and into the endless oceanic trench. He continued to burn the dragon vein and deduce the many mysteries and laws of the seventh realm. An ordinary sovereign lord might need to spend thousands or even tens of thousands of years to completely break through. However, the existence of the mysterious space shortened the time infinitely for Yishuan. As long as he continued to burn the dragon vein and use the mysterious space to deduce, it would be fine. The more things he deduced, the more profound his understanding of the great Tao became, and the more power he could control. The terrifying power of the Tai Vitality Convergence Pill also flowed into his limbs and bones at any time. It was filled with terrifying power and helped him break through to the legendary realm. Yishuan continued to break through. In fact, he had already lost count of how many times he had broken through. He kept failing, but the medicinal power of the Tai Vitality Convergence Pill immediately allowed him to break through again. Many sovereign emperors took a long time to break through the bottleneck. This was because they needed a considerable amount of time to regroup after each failure. They needed to gather enough martial power to break through again. However, Yishuan had the Tai Vitality Condensation Pill. That enormous medicinal efficacies were constantly pushing him forward. The barrier of Yishuan's seventh realm was too strong. It was far stronger than that of an ordinary sovereign lord. Therefore, he had never thought that he could succeed in one try. However, as his inner demons were swept away, he could already feel that the realm barrier was on the verge of collapse. It was as if it would collapse in the next second. I must succeed this time. Yishuan gritted his teeth. His eyes revealed an incomparable determination. If he couldn't break through, all his efforts would be for naught. However, once he broke through, he would become a supreme expert of the seventh realm. He would also be a tycoon in the fortune realm. He was tyrannical enough to make a race rise. Even heavenly Taoism had to be wary of him. Was it really necessary to offend such a powerful existence? Once he broke through, he would be on a completely different level. His situation would undoubtedly be much better. After countless rounds of scouring, it was still accelerating at an astonishing speed. Countless waves of huge medicinal power accompanied the scouring of Yishuan's martial power, constantly attacking the barrier of the seventh realm. Countless information about the great Tao was also deduced at the same time and poured into Yishuan's mind. Boom! Finally, Yishuan didn't know how much time had passed, but he felt a terrifying power rushing out from the deepest part of his body. That terrifying power almost rushed out of his body. However, it was instantly suppressed by an even more powerful martial power. Around him, the divine kingdom of time suddenly appeared and transformed this power into an invisible form. Yishuan suddenly opened his eyes, and a smile appeared on his face. Great. I finally entered the seventh realm. He laughed loudly. He felt that everything in front of him had brightened. He had a completely different understanding of the great Tao. It was more comprehensive and more profound. The seventh realm and the sixth realm are really different. No wonder it's like a watershed. It's like the difference between heaven and earth. Yishuan carefully felt the changes in his body. Not only did his understanding of the great Tao become more profound, but the power he controlled had also increased to a higher level. Simply put, the current him could almost defeat several of himself who were only at the peak of the sixth realm. Of course, ordinary seventh realm cultivators did not have such powerful strength. Yishuan, who was at the peak of the sixth realm, could still escape unscathed, but that was all he could do. Coming to the fortune realm was indeed the right choice. If it were in the myriad heavens, when would I be able to enter the seventh realm? Yishuan nodded with satisfaction. He was not underestimating himself. Even in the myriad heavens, he was confident that he could enter the seventh realm. It was just that the time needed was simply immeasurable. Now it's time to leave and go to Buzhou Mountain, Yi Shiwen said. For him, the human race was still his root. He could never forget it. Suddenly, a violent explosion came from outside. Chapter 31:49. A series of violent explosions came from the outside, turning into ripples that tried to break through the formation. However, the formation that Yi Shiwen had set up turned them into nothingness. Yi Shiwen probed out with his divine sense and immediately saw a fierce battle taking place. A man and a woman were being chased by a group of foreign creatures. They were blocked near the trench that Yi Shiwen was hiding in. The huge bodies of the foreign creatures completely filled the nearby sea, completely surrounding the two cultivators. Ju and your sister Shui Yin, you go first. I'll help you fight your way out. The male cultivator kept panting and said with a determined look on his face. Senior brother Qingling Zi, how can I abandon you at this time? The female cultivator's face was filled with grief and indignation. Silly. Is this the time to let your emotions affect your decisions? The news that senior brother risked his life to obtain must not be lost here. You must pass the news back. Otherwise, Storm City will be in danger. Qingling Zi shouted loudly. Pass the news back? Ha ha ha, don't even think about it. All of you will die. A huge python opened its mouth, its expression incomparably ferocious. You go quickly, I'll stop them. Qingling Zi shouted loudly. Layers of starlight appeared on his body, illuminating the entire dusky coast. The huge power of the stars pushed the seawater away. His clothes fluttered in the wind. The huge power on his body caused the seawater to surge wildly. Junior sister Shui Yin only bit her lips, her eyes filled with tears. Around her, many foreign creatures surrounded her. Dazzling stars, Qingling Zi shouted loudly. The power on his body swept out and turned into a terrifying attack, attacking the foreign creatures. However, it was impossible for him to fight against so many alien creatures alone. He could only barely hold them back. However, it was all useless. His strength alone was simply too minuscule. Gradually, even the alien life forms were unable to hold him back. Even junior sister Shui Yin had joined the fray. However, they could only watch as the encirclement grew smaller and smaller. They were completely powerless to do anything. They tried to send out message talismans, but they were all intercepted. These outlander creatures were all experts, and their intelligence was no less than that of ordinary people. How could they allow such a thing to happen? Could it be that the heavens want me dead? Suddenly, right when the two of them were about to be killed, a myriad of rays of sword light suddenly shot up from the bottom of the sea, and everywhere these rays of sword light passed, the foreign life forms let out shrill cries as they exploded into pieces. Although these foreign creatures were powerful, they were unable to retaliate against the sword light at all. In just an instant, they were completely slaughtered. This is... Qingling Zi's eyes widened, as if he could not believe the sudden change. Every single sword ray was like a mountain brushing past his body. He could feel that even a single strand of sword aura could tear him into pieces. However, the sword chi seemed to have eyes of their own, and it avoided them. Which senior is willing to lend a hand? Astral Sex, Qingling Zi, and junior sister Shui Yin will be eternally grateful. Qingling Zi quickly cupped his hands and said. His cultivation was not bad, so he naturally had a discerning eye. He also understood that this situation clearly indicated that someone had lent a hand. Junior sister Shui Yin, who was beside him, also quickly cupped her hands and didn't dare to be rude. This person had not yet appeared, but he had already displayed earth-shattering strength. How could they not be shocked? Suddenly, a figure slowly appeared. It was a young man in green clothes. May I know your name, senior? Junior Qingling Zi will be eternally grateful. Qingling Zi quickly cupped his hands and said, It's nothing. Are you from the astral sect? Yi Shiwen asked. Yes, Senior. Junior sister and I are both disciples of the astral sect. May I know if Senior has any relationship with our astral sect? Qing Ling Zi asked tentatively. I'm old friends with your headmaster. So I saw that you were in danger, so I lent a hand. The man in green clothes said. It was undoubtedly Yi Shiwen. For Yi Shiwen, who had just broken through the seventh realm, all of this was nothing. It was as easy as flipping his hand. On the other hand, Qing Ling Zi and junior sister Shui Yin were completely serious. The astral sect only had one headmaster, and that was the Star Emperor who had established the supreme foundation of the astral sect. He was a high and mighty emperor. Although they had all become deities, they also knew how big the gap between them and those emperors was. However, the senior in front of them didn't have any relationship with the seniors of the sect. He was simply old friends with the Star Emperor. The origin of this person was simply beyond their imagination. Those who had old friends with the emperors could only be at that level. The emperors would not lower themselves to be friends with quasi-emperors. This was an unchanging truth since ancient times. Thinking that the senior in front of them was actually a powerful emperor, the two suddenly became even more terrified. They didn't dare to raise their heads. No wonder their pursuers were so easily dealt with. In front of the emperor, these so-called pursuers were just a joke. Just now, you said that you have some information. What's going on? Yi Shiwen said, I've been in closed-door training for the past 100 years. What happened in the Stormy Sea region? Yi Shiwen had been wholeheartedly in closed-door training for the past 100 years. He had no time to care about the situation of the outside world. Even if he wholeheartedly cultivated in closed-door training, it had still taken him 100 years. If he was distracted, who knew how much time it would take? Naturally, he didn't dare to act recklessly. It turns out that Senior has just come out of closed-door training. Then allow me to introduce you. Qing Ling Zi quickly introduced the situation of the past 100 years. It turned out that the entire Stormy Sea region had been plunged into a reign of terror ever since the Pan-Tian Emperor gathered many of his old subordinates. In particular, the conflict between the Fortune God dynasty and the Pan-Tian Emperor had never stopped. The places that the Fortune God dynasty wanted to suppress were far from just the Stormy Sea region. Therefore, the forces that could be sent in were only the many forces in the eastern region. In addition, the other forces in the Stormy Sea region were eyeing them covetously. They simply didn't dare to mobilize too many forces. They could only send a portion of their forces to fight against the Pan-Tian Emperor. Over the years, both sides had fought countless times. Blood flowed like a river. No one knew how many experts had fallen, especially around the Stormy Sea region. No one knew how many battles had broken out. Qing Ling Zi, Shui Yin, and the others were sent to go undercover among the creatures in the outer domain to gather information. Some time ago, they found out that the experts of the other forces in the Stormy Sea region, who had been eyeing them covetously, were finally going to join the attack on the Stormy Sea region. They wanted to completely eliminate the Stormy Sea region, which had been nailed to the Stormy Sea region for countless years. They wanted to drive the forces of the Fortune God dynasty out of the Stormy Sea region. However, the forces of the Stormy Sea region were not prepared for this. Previously, the forces of the Stormy Sea region had made it clear that they were watching a good show. In fact, they were secretly gathering and were about to attack. After receiving this news, the group of people did not dare to stay any longer. They hurriedly rushed back. Unfortunately, they were still discovered. In order to cover their escape, the others had stayed behind to cover their retreat. Now the odds were against them. In the end, only the two of them were left. Fortunately, they met Yi Shiwen and were saved. Sure enough, Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. 100 years ago, he had already guessed that the other forces of the Stormy Sea region would not be willing to give up so easily. It was also impossible for them to watch both sides suffer, because it was simply impossible for them to do so. Both sides were giants. Although the Pan-Tian Emperor was not as powerful as the Fortune God dynasty, he was not an ordinary person. The possibility of a life-and-death battle between forces of this level was too small. Therefore, the major forces of the Stormy Sea region would join in sooner or later. It was just that he could not predict when the major forces of the Stormy Sea region would join in. He believed that the forces of the Fortune God dynasty should have been prepared for this. Even so, even if they were prepared, if they were caught off guard, the consequences would still be unimaginable. It was impossible to destroy the Eastern Region Coalition Army. However, it was very likely that the nail that had been nailed to the Stormy Sea region, Storm City, would be removed. In that case, this matter is naturally very urgent. It cannot be delayed for even a moment. Let's go to Storm City first. Yi Shiwen said. At this time, Storm City had become a focal point. Experts from all sides had gathered there. Many experts from various forces of the Eastern region would appear there. If it was before, Yi Shiwen would probably not join in the fun. After all, Heavenly Taoism was still looking for his whereabouts everywhere. However, once he had truly entered the seventh realm, it would be completely different. The world was vast, and he could go anywhere. As he spoke, Yi Shiwen directly swept up the two people and flew in the direction of the Stormy Sea region. Yi Shiwen's flying speed naturally couldn't be compared with the two of them. It was unknown how many nautical miles he had already appeared in almost an instant. He rose like a dragon and descended like a phoenix. He was already close to the vicinity of Stormwind City. After entering the seventh realm, Yi Shiwen's martial power had skyrocketed. His speed had also increased to another level. It was simply incomparable to before. The two of them did not feel the slightest jolt or discomfort. Almost in a few breaths, they saw the towering city walls of Storm City appear in front of them. So fast, although they had already made preparations after guessing that Yi Shiwen's identity might be an emperor, they never imagined that his speed would be so fast. If it were them, they did not know how many days it would take to reach the city. Now they had arrived in just a few breaths. Chapter 3150. The outskirts of Stormwind City were less than 100,000 li away. It could be said that there were countless military camps that stretched for tens of thousands of li. Countless tyrannical auras could be sensed. These were the armies under the command of Pan Tian Tianzhen. In the past, Pan Tian Tian had once ruled Storm City. Although it was no longer comparable to the past, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Even with Pan Tian Tian's current charisma, he could still summon a huge fighting force. Moreover, Storm City was just one of the larger battlefields. In addition to the battle between the Fortune God dynasty and Pan Tian, confrontations between the Fortune God dynasty and other forces from the foreign domains were also common. In the distance, experts from all sides were constantly fighting. Only emperors were involved. Both sides seemed to be restraining themselves. Everything was the calm before the storm. The city walls of Storm City were right in front of him. Yi Shiwen didn't hide his figure and directly flew in. He didn't go anywhere else, but directly went to the Constellation Sect's residence in Storm City. A fierce battle had broken out between both sides surrounding Storm City this time. Therefore, experts from all sides had been mobilized. Star Sovereign was also among them. Even though he was a sect sovereign, there were times when he had to obey the Fortune God dynasty's orders. Then again, the Fortune God dynasty wouldn't casually send these emperor sovereigns here and there. But once there was a transfer order, these emperors had to listen to it. Only experts who had entered the seventh realm or above had a certain degree of autonomy. In a boundless secret realm, many experts of the astral sect were busy. In the palace of the primordial divine mountain, Star Emperor was sitting cross-legged on a cloud bed. He was constantly absorbing the endless spiritual energy and releasing powerful laws. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and said, "I don't know which fellow Taoist has come to visit. Forgive me for not going out to greet you. Fellow Taoist Star Emperor, I'm really sorry for taking the liberty to come. It's just that this matter is of great importance, so I took the liberty to come." A clear voice came from outside the main hall. Then, a young man in green walked in with a man and a woman. Star Emperor's eyes widened because he clearly remembered that this young man in green was none other than Martial Emperor Yi Shiwen, who had not been seen for a while. He also had an impression of the two people behind him. They should be two of the more outstanding disciples in his sect. The foundation of the Constellation sect was founded by him. Therefore, although he seemed to be aloof and didn't care about the affairs of the Constellation sect, he was actually aware of the few outstanding disciples that appeared in the sect. For an emperor-monarch, paying attention to these matters was as easy as flipping his hand. Because of this, he found it strange that these three people, who seemed to be completely unrelated to each other, were together. So, its fellow Taoist martial emperor, I apologize for not going out to meet you. Star Emperor stood up and said. He could be arrogant in front of others, but he couldn't be like this in front of Yi Shiwen. It was not only because when they were looking for the phaseless spirit bone, Yi Shiwen turned the tide and finally succeeded because of Yi Shiwen. Moreover, a lot of news had spread out afterwards. Yi Shiwen's cultivation had made great progress in the Pan-Heavenly Palace. In fact, he had been able to fight against an existence like the Gungjin Tiger Emperor, and had even won. From that moment on, he understood that even though they were both sovereign emperors, they were no longer on the same level. In the face of Yi Shiwen, he couldn't have the slightest arrogance. When he looked at Yi Shiwen, he only felt that Yi Shiwen was more unfathomable than before. He even felt like he was facing the vast stars. He had such a feeling even with his martial power and cultivation. One could well imagine how tyrannical Yi Shiwen had become. The rumor that he could defeat the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor and the Eternal Divine Emperor by himself wasn't groundless. Instead, it was true. He vaguely remembered that Yi Shiwen was only a master of the fourth realm at that time. Although he was already stronger than him at that time, it wasn't entirely true to say that he was much stronger. However, he couldn't even see the limits of Yi Shiwen's strength now. He couldn't believe that Yi Shiwen could be so strong. How many years had it been? He had advanced further with the help of the Tai Soul Gathering Pellet. He thought that his progress was fast. However, compared to the current Yi Shiwen, it was like comparing a person to a dead person. There was no comparison at all. In just an instant, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. However, these thoughts were quickly suppressed at the bottom of his heart. He didn't show it on his face. Yi Shiwen said, Fellow Star Emperor, I haven't seen you for a while. You're still as elegant as ever. Your skill has improved to the next level. Congratulations. Yi Shiwen's vision was very sharp. He could naturally see that the Star Emperor had broken through another realm. He should have relied on the power of the Tai Soul Gathering Pellet. After all, not everyone had the same fortuitous encounter and speed of progress as him. If the speed of his cultivation was known, many people would be scared to death. Not to mention those sovereign emperors, even those quasi-emperors couldn't have such amazing cultivation speed. You flatter me. Compared to Martial Emperor, it's not worth mentioning at all. Come, fellow Emperor, please take a seat. I don't know why fellow Emperor brought two useless disciples of my sect here this time, said the Star Emperor. Disciples Qingling Zi and Shui Yin pay respect to the Supreme Leader. At this moment, Qingling Zi and Qingling Zi finally found an opening. They hurriedly knelt down and paid their respects to Star Emperor. Although gods didn't worship heaven or earth, they still had great respect for Star Emperor, the founding ancestor of their sect. Get up. The Star Emperor waved his hand and let the two get up. He still looked at Yi Shiwen. Oh, it's like this. Yi Shiwen immediately told the Star Emperor about the two. Star Emperor's expression turned solemn. He wasn't someone who didn't know what was good for him, so he naturally understood that if the two forces joined hands, Storm City might fall. At that time, it would be a huge blow to the Fortune Divine Dynasty. If they wanted to plant another spy in the Storm Sea region, they would have to pay a huge price. Thank you, Martial Emperor, for helping my two useless disciples. The Star Emperor cupped his fists and said, Star Emperor fellow is too polite. It's just a small effort. It's not worth mentioning. After all, these juniors sacrificed their lives to bring back this news. I asked Star Emperor fellow to quickly report it. Yi Shiwen quickly said, compared to the Star Emperor, who belonged to the system, Yi Shiwen was just a barbarian. He didn't have any connections in all aspects. Otherwise, he could directly announce it to the world. Martial Emperor is right. Let's not delay, let's go, said the Star Emperor. Although there were grievances between the sects and the Fortune God dynasty, on this issue, they still knew what was good for them. They didn't dare to stay any longer. Even a small matter could become a big matter between the two camps. After saying that, the Star Emperor and Yi Shiwen disappeared from the main hall. At this moment, Qing Ling Zi and Shui Yin seemed to have just regained their senses. So it turned out that the senior was really a monarch and was not bluffing them. They were just guessing earlier. How could it be as shocking as now when their guesses were confirmed? Moreover, they even faintly felt that between the two of them, the Star Emperor seemed to be at a slight disadvantage. His tone was more respectful and polite. When they realized this, they even felt that the Star Emperor was almost invincible in their hearts. In front of this senior, even the sect master who was almost invincible could not get away with it. The world of an Emperor Lord was too far away for them. For them, there was no way to distinguish the strength of an Emperor Lord. They could only rely on their own guesses. It was precisely because of this that they were so shocked. However, apart from this shock, they also felt very lucky to have met this senior. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to send the news back, and they would have died in the hands of those foreign creatures. At this time, Yi Shiwen and the Star Emperor had reappeared above Storm City. Although it was called a city, in fact, in terms of area, it was almost a small continent. Many mortals had never traveled from the east to the west of the city in their lives. The direction in which the two of them were heading was the center of the entire Storm City. Fellow Taoist Martial Emperor, this matter is too serious. We must report it, said the Star Emperor. This time, the one overseeing this place is Senior Battle Emperor. We must let him know first. At the mention of the Battle Emperor, even the Star Emperor, with his status, could not help but show some respect. Although they were both sovereign emperors, theoretically speaking, they could be called fellow Taoists and could be regarded as equals. In fact, the Battle Emperor had already been a general under the Fortune Heavenly Monarch's command since a long time ago. He had gone through thick and thin with the Fortune Heavenly Monarch and had fought alongside the Fortune Heavenly Monarch to establish the Fortune Divine Dynasty. He was one of the oldest people in the Fortune Divine Dynasty. The time he had spent on the Tao was many times longer than the Star Emperor. Even the Star Emperor could only address him as senior. Although everyone had heard of the legend of the Fate Creation Heavenly Lord, in fact, even an Emperor Lord like the Star Emperor had never seen the Fate Creation Heavenly Lord. Those stories could only be regarded as myths and legends. Therefore, many Emperor Lords had to address the Battle Emperor, who was from the same era as the Fate Creation Heavenly Lord, as a senior. Even the Battle Emperor is here. Yi Shiwen thought to himself. It seemed that the Fortune God dynasty wasn't ignorant, and was also very aware of the crucial role of Storm City. An emperor of this level was considered a big shot in the entire Fortune God dynasty. Normally, it was hard to find their whereabouts, and it was almost impossible to see them. They were all in the Fortune God dynasty center, not to mention presiding over a region. As the two of them spoke, they arrived at the center of Storm City, where experts from all over the world gathered. Chapter 3151. Under the Star Emperor's guidance, Yi Shiwen entered the center of Storm City. There was a stretch of halls, and he could sense that there were many powerhouses living in these halls. There were layers of space in each hall, and it was not as small as it looked from the outside. Storm City was now the place where the major forces of the Eastern region stayed in the Storm Sea region. During the Long War in the past, the other cities in the Storm Sea region had been eliminated one by one. Only Storm City, which was the first city to enter the Storm Sea region, was still under the control of the Fortune God dynasty. Therefore, this was the only place for the major forces to settle down. The Star Emperor's arrival did not cause any disturbance. This was the core of the entire Storm City, and there were often powerhouses going in and out of it. None of this was strange at all. When Yi Shiwen entered the City Lord's mansion, he suddenly felt a barrier sweeping over his body. It was a kind of detection barrier. Yi Shiwen immediately understood that this barrier was used to detect his identity and prevent foreign creatures from impersonating and entering the city. This barrier was very clever. Yi Shiwen could tell that it was probably the work of a heavenly venerate. It was said that Storm City could be built because many heavenly venerates were stationed here, and they even joined forces to build this city. There were also such barriers in the periphery of Storm City, but they were not as clever as this one. Star Emperor, what brings you here this time? Before the two of them could enter, someone immediately came forward and asked. It was a young man dressed in luxurious robes. He had a handsome face, but there were two feelers on his forehead, giving off a dangerous aura. This is... The young man looked at Yi Shiwen and could not help but ask. Butterfly Emperor, let me introduce you. This is Martial Emperor Yi Shiwen. Fellow Taoist Martial Emperor, this is Lord Battle Emperor's last disciple. Butterfly Emperor. The Star Emperor introduced the two of them. Then, he sent another voice transmission to Yi Shiwen. He had already guessed that Yi Shiwen probably came from a different world and did not know much about the Fortune God dynasty. Yi Shiwen finally understood the origin of the Butterfly Emperor after listening to Star Emperor's explanation. It was said that the Butterfly Emperor's original body was a world annihilation emperor butterfly. This butterfly belonged to the mutated species among the mutated species. It rarely appeared once in millions of years, but every time it appeared, it was accompanied by the destruction of the world. An adult world annihilation emperor butterfly could destroy the world with just a slight flap of its wings. Destroying a world was as easy as blowing off dust. Countless emperors wanted to obtain the law of destruction it cultivated. Coincidentally, before he was born, he was brought back to the Fortune Divine Dynasty by the Battle Emperor. Finally, he hatched and entered the Battle Emperor's sect as his last disciple. Later on, she became an imperial lord and was known as the Butterfly Sovereign. However, she only attained the Tao recently, so she was considered a junior. Her cultivation was not the strongest, but the power of the Tao of destruction was impossible to guard against. Most importantly, she had the support of a super god like the Battle Emperor. Nobody dared to underestimate the Butterfly Sovereign. Martial Emperor Yi Shiwen, you're the Martial Emperor? It's an honor to meet you, said the Butterfly Sovereign as he cupped his hands. There was a hint of surprise and playfulness in his eyes. You're too polite, Butterfly Sovereign, said Yi Shiwen as he cupped his hands. The Butterfly Sovereign's strength was naturally far from his. In Yi Shiwen's eyes, the Butterfly Sovereign's strength could not be hidden. At most, the Butterfly Sovereign's cultivation was at the second realm. It was much weaker than the Star Emperor, let alone Yi Shiwen, who had already entered the seventh realm. However, nobody dared to underestimate the Battle Emperor behind her. Why are you here this time? The Butterfly Sovereign had obviously heard about Yi Shiwen. After all, nobody could ignore the fact that the heavenly Taoism was hunting him down. However, he did not say much. Instead, he quickly changed the topic and asked, It's like this. My disciple found out that Pantheon Venerate might not be the only one attacking Storm City. The other forces of the Stormy Sea region might also follow suit and attack Storm City. That's why we hurriedly came to inform Senior Battle Emperor. I see. The Butterfly Sovereign's expression suddenly became serious. Naturally, he knew what was good and bad. Naturally, he knew how big of a deal it would be if the information was true. In reality, they had been doing so many things recently because they were guarding against the other forces in the Stormy Sea region joining in. The consequences would be unimaginable if this matter was true. I'm sorry. My master has something to attend to and has gone out. He's not in Storm City now. I'll send him a message immediately. He should be back soon if he sees this news. The Butterfly Sovereign revealed a piece of news that shocked the Star Emperor. The Battle Emperor was not in Storm City at all. He could not help but turn pale with fright. Storm City with or without the Battle Emperor guarding, it was not the same thing at all. Without the Battle Emperor guarding it, it could be said that Storm City's combat power would drop by more than a third. This wasn't an exaggeration. The usefulness of a veteran Ninth Realm, the Arch like the Battle the Arch, was simply immeasurable. During this period of time, he had been resisting the attacks of the Pantheon Venerate. Otherwise, given the Pantheon Venerate's abilities, he might have already conquered Storm City. However, the Battle Emperor was not in Storm City at such a crucial time. If the major forces in the Stormy Sea region knew about this, they would probably send their troops over. However, it did not make much difference now. Where can Senior Battle Emperor go at this time? Asked the Star Emperor quickly. It's not up to me to ask about his affairs. The Butterfly Sovereign could not help but force a smile. They were all Emperor Lords. Putting aside the difference in strength between them, the Butterfly Sovereign was raised by the Battle Emperor since he was young. It was impossible for him to interfere with any of his decisions. I'm afraid it's not enough to ask Senior Battle Emperor to come back, said Yi Shiwen with his eyes squinted. Why do you say that? The Butterfly Sovereign looked at Yi Shiwen with dissatisfaction. Although he knew that Yi Shiwen was very strong, Yi Shiwen's words were somewhat insulting to the Battle Emperor. In his heart, the Battle Emperor was an invincible existence in the world. Even the Pantheon Sovereign could stop him. Although the Pantheon Sovereign could not be mentioned in the same breath as the Pantheon Sovereign, he believed that as long as the Battle Emperor returned, he would be able to immediately stabilize the situation. Fellow Butterfly Sovereign, there shouldn't be many people who know that Senior Battle Emperor has left Storm City, said Yi Shiwen. No one knows for the time being. Master only informed me, said the Butterfly Sovereign seriously. That's right. Since everyone doesn't know that Senior Battle Emperor has left, it means that many forces in the Storm Sea area also think that the Battle Emperor is still here. However, since Senior Battle Emperor is still here, they still dare to participate in the attack, gather their troops, and prepare to take down Storm City in one fell swoop. What does this mean? It clearly means that they must have made preparations to deal with Senior Battle Emperor. Therefore, I'm afraid that it's not enough to ask Senior Battle Emperor to come back, said Yi Shiwen calmly. Moreover, Senior Battle Emperor is really not in Storm City now. I'm afraid that the situation we're facing will be even worse. We must ask the Eastern Heavenly Sovereign Mansion to send more experts to support us. Yi Shiwen's words immediately made the two of them dignified. There were many experts in the Eastern region, but the place they needed to defend was also large. In addition, the experts who were originally transferred to contain the major forces in the Stormy Sea region. Although the experts who could stay in the Stormy Sea region still seemed to be as many as the clouds, but if they really had to deal with them, they would probably be stretched thin. The most important thing was, as Yi Shiwen said, they lacked a true top expert to oversee the city. Moreover, they didn't know when the Battle Emperor would come back or whether he could come back. These were all unknown. In that case, there was absolutely nothing wrong with being more cautious. What you said makes sense. I was impolite, said the Butterfly Sovereign quickly. This made Yi Shiwen look at her in a different light. Although the Butterfly Sovereign was arrogant, she was not someone who didn't understand the situation. This could save a lot of trouble. I'll go and inform the Eastern Heavenly Sovereign Mansion first. There will definitely be a fierce battle next. I hope that everything is not too late, said the Butterfly Sovereign. My two friends, please wait here for a moment. Please forgive us. It's okay. Butterfly Sovereign, you can go by yourself. Don't worry about us. Star Sovereign nodded. At this time, it was meaningless to care about these things. He naturally knew what was more important. After the Butterfly Sovereign left, a disciple in uniform quickly came forward and led the two of them to the side hall. He served tea and asked the two of them to wait. Martial Emperor Realm Friend, if it wasn't for you this time, two of my disciples would have died in vain. We wouldn't even be able to send a news back. Storm City would be in danger, said the Star Sovereign with a sigh. This is just a coincidence. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. He wasn't optimistic in his heart. Even if the Battle Emperor really came back, it wouldn't bode well for him. The Storm Sea area had long wanted to get rid of the thorn in their side, Storm City. This time, the remaining forces of the Pantheon Lord were stirring up trouble. Under such circumstances, it was very dangerous. Relatively speaking, he was naturally biased towards the Fortune God dynasty. If he had to join a camp, there was no more suitable camp than the Fortune God dynasty. Soon, the two of them were silent. Both of them were thinking about countermeasures, and the Star Sovereign was also thinking about many things. I heard that the Martial Emperor is here. Which one is the Martial Emperor? Suddenly, a loud voice broke the tranquility of the side hall, and a figure flashed past and directly rushed into the hall. It was a middle-aged man with a slender figure and a fair face. He looked a little sinister. There was a hint of arrogance on his face. He was dressed in a luxurious robe, and it was obvious that he was a person of high status. As soon as he came up, he looked at the two of them and locked onto Yishuan. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.